Okay, welcome back. Our next guest is Ernest Lunning, reporter for Colorado Politics and the Gazette. Ernest is coming to us, I believe, from Denver tonight. And Ernest, just kind of wanted to get your initial thoughts on some of the state races, um, primarily maybe the Colorado House, but just in general, kind of what you're looking at most closely this evening.
We're looking at, hey there, we're looking at three congressional races that are potentially coming down to the wire. Uh, and, I think the presidential race in Colorado is probably not going to be a surprise. Kamala Harris is going to carry the state probably by respectable double digits. All the polling shows. But there's three congressional races that are really up for grabs. One of them is the eighth CD, where Yadira Caraveo is running in one of the most competitive seats in the country. We've seen more than $20 million in outside spending pouring into that race. Republican Gabe Evans, a first-term state representative from Fort Lupton, is challenging her. And that one, we may not know how that's coming out tonight. 2 years ago, when Caraveo first won that seat, which was a brand new seat, that race wasn't called for a couple of days. So we're going to have to see. Though who knows? We're going to start getting results here in probably about 20 minutes, and we'll see what things look like. Another race is out in the Western Slope in the third CD. That's the district that Lauren Boebert represents now, but she decided to move across the state close to a year ago and moved into Ken Buck's old district because she didn't want to have to face Adam Frisch, the Democrat who almost beat her last time. Frisch stayed in the race with just one of the biggest congressional war chests we've ever seen. He was raising money like crazy last year when he was running against Lauren Boebert. Now he's running against Jeff Hurd, a first-time candidate. He's he's an attorney from Grand Junction, and he's running a fairly low-key race. And that's one where Hurd's advisors think that if he kind of keeps his head down and runs as a generic Republican, that district will revert to its traditional voting patterns, which is to send Republicans by, 5, 6, 7, 8 points back to Congress. That's what happened to Lauren the first time and to her predecessors for the last decade. But Adam Frisch has been running a very aggressive campaign. He's put 74,000 miles on his truck, riding around the district for the last 2 years. And he's, if anyone with a TV in Colorado has seen his ads for the last month and a half, 2 months, he's raised a tremendous amount of money and he's spending it all, not leaving anything on the table. So he's also got a very robust ground operation. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. That's one where I think if we're going to see an unexpected result tonight, that it could be Adam Frisch unseating the Republican in one of the three districts that the Republicans hold in the state right now. The other one is the district that Lauren moved to, the fourth CD, which is Douglas County in the Eastern Plains. And that one, like I say, Ken Buck held that. He resigned earlier this year. Lauren chose not to run in the vacancy election, but she instead wound up winning a crowded primary that night. She's probably on her way back to D.C. It's a very Republican-leaning district. It's the most solidly Republican district in the state. But Democrat Tricia Calvarez also has, there's a lot of cachet among small-dollar donors around the country to say you're the one who's running against Lauren Boebert. And she's raised a tremendous amount of money, and she's making an effective case. So we'll see. It's a very suburban district. It's the kind of district that swung much further to the left post-Dobbs since the Supreme Court threw out Roe v. Wade. those kind of districts around the country in the last 2 years have been voting much more Democratic than they have in previous years. So it's unlikely that Lauren's not gonna win another term, but we'll have to look at the margin there. Ken Buck won his last race by 20, close to 24 points, like he did the race before that. I think Lauren's going to be lucky if she breaks into double digits, if she gets above 10 points. So we'll have to see. That's what we're watching tonight.
Ernest, it seems to me that the Democrats are, they're trying to make some inroads in that Lauren Boebert district this election cycle, but really what it's going to end up coming down to is what are they going to do 2 years from now? Are they going to be able to, kind of carpet bomb her enough in the district that maybe they understand that they don't win tonight, but they're playing the long game and they think that this district, they can flip it 2 years from now. What do you think about that?
That could be what's going on. I think Republicans are watching just as closely. Lauren won the primary with about 50% of the vote against 5 other Republicans. I think when she moved into the district, there was an expectation that people might clear a path for her. That definitely didn't happen. She overpowered them, though, some very strong Republicans in the district. But if she makes it look like that district is vulnerable, and demographically, as the years go on and Douglas County becomes more and more suburban and looks more and more like the Denver suburbs, Arapahoe and Jefferson counties, it's going to be a less safe district for Republicans. So Republicans might think that they have a shot at her in the primary next time, and there are a few who might start running right away if it's a close race for her. The Democrats, too. I mean, Tricia Calvarese is a name that we're going to be hearing from in the future. And there are some other Republicans in that district, too, who might take a look at that and say she's softened her up. A lot of that depends, because it's going to be the midterm election, whether or not Donald Trump is in the White House or Kamala Harris is in the White House. If it's Donald Trump, Republicans are traditionally going to have a harder time winning re-election in the midterm. If it's Kamala Harris, it's probably the Republicans' race to lose. So that's what we'll see. Guys, I've got to run. We've got some results coming up pretty soon, so we'll check back in with you later, okay?
Thanks, Ernest.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Ernest.
Great. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thanks. Well, I was hoping that we were going to be able to get to some state legislative races there, but he really wanted to talk about those 3 congressional districts.
Yeah, so that was interesting, and be good to have him back on later again as we start to see some results. Is Rachel?
She not in yet. At least I don't see her in. We don't have Rachel in yet, but she's coming. So maybe this is the time to talk about our second sponsor for tonight.
As you're eating, our second sponsor, Poor Richards. Very generous of him tonight to drop off several pizzas for us and the crew here at the Gazette. And so was hoping we'd have a chance to maybe talk to Richard. He wasn't available tonight, but maybe we'll be able to have him on sometime here soon. For those who don't know, Richard Gorman, former president of the Colorado Springs City Council, longtime activist here in the community, involved in a lot of different things. And so had hoped to get Richard's take on some of this political stuff because he's so damn smart. But not tonight, but at least we get to enjoy the pizza.
Yeah, I mean, Poor Richard's, man, some of the best pizza in town, downtown Colorado Springs. Really appreciate him sponsoring us tonight. And if you want a chance to order some of this delicious pizza, Josh is going to drop the number in the link below, and we're going to show you. Look at that gorgeous pizza right there from Poor Richards. When you're getting election results, Kyle, you need to have pizza. It makes everything better. It makes the lows higher and the highs even higher than that.
Yes, very true, very true. So
what do we got, Josh? Anything online? Any comments? You want to add anything to what we're talking about so far tonight?
No, I'm doing something else right now. I'll get something for you.
nothing new really in the presidential race results. Again, still of the early states called, no surprises. So hopefully here in about 5 minutes, I think some more states are going to be, polls are going to be closing, including here in Colorado in about 6 minutes. So I've heard anywhere from 7:30 to 8 o'clock before we're going to see any results here in El Paso County, but I'm guessing other statewide results we'll start to see well before then. So
Yeah.
we can look at that.
Yeah, Kyle, I think what we'll see as in terms of Colorado and understanding what's happening in our state, traditionally our votes, our early votes are counted ahead of time. They're obviously not released in any way or showed to anybody, but they're typically released a little bit, or they are counted ahead of time. And so we should have some pretty good numbers and pretty good idea of what's happening in Colorado around 7:30, maybe a quarter till 8.
Yeah, good. Also here in hopefully in about 10 minutes, we're going to have another Gazette or Colorado politics reporter, Marissa Ventrelli from up in Denver, is going to be joining us again. She has been looking, following and writing on the myriad of ballot issues here in Colorado this year. And so before we start to see any returns, we're going to hear a little bit from her, maybe on what she's expecting to see tonight. And then obviously, hopefully we'll have a chance to have her back on later.
All right. And in the meantime, I think we've got Rachel ready to go. So you guys just go ahead and bring her in, please.
Great.
Rachel, how are you? What do you got for us tonight?
Well, I'm a little bedraggled. It's snowing in downtown Denver, where I just left an election night watch party, and winter is upon us.
So it is snowing out there? You can't see it?
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. We've had a long fall, but I guess it's over.
We missed that. Please go ahead.
I think we're having some sound issues. I didn't hear what you said.
We understand you're going to share with us a little bit, some interesting tidbits and facts about ballot initiatives, and we're also hoping you were going to comment on my incredibly sweet shirt.
Well, I can't actually see your shirt, so we'll have to save that commentary. Jeff, I've been thinking about my last job. I remember a coworker of mine had taken the job and moved to Colorado from Wisconsin. She came into my office one day and she had this big stack of papers and she plopped it on my desk and she said, "What is this? Abortion? The budget? Wolves?" And I realized it was her ballot. We forget living in Colorado that not everybody gets this take a direct democracy like we do here in Colorado. And I saw some recent polling that said that 81% of Coloradans think that that's pretty great, getting to weigh in on the variety of issues that we do. And as you guys know, this is another one of those years where we've got a whole lot of issues that run the gamut in terms of the subjects. 14 state measures, which is almost a record, not quite. Going back to the 70s, we've had 14 state measures on our ballots 3 times.
Issues in 1 year? Come on.
Say that again?
They need to be able to weigh in on so many freaking issues in 1 year. 14 initiatives, right?
That's right. We've had 14 state initiatives on our ballot. This is the 3rd time since 1975. Not a record, though. That distinction is held by the first year that we had initiative and referendum abilities in Colorado. In 1912, we had 20 issues on our ballots. And
All
That
people had to do
included,
in 1920 was read about ballot initiatives. There's so much more in the world to do today. How can we possibly vote on 14 of these things and know what we're doing?
that's true. But back then they had things like 8-hour work days for minors and women workers, and the establishment of juvenile courts, which is another thing we probably take for granted. Back in those days, we just put child offenders, even for minor offenses, in jail with hardened criminals. And establishing juvenile courts was something Colorado was a leader in. That effort was led by a guy named Judge Ben Lindsay and Molly Brown of Titanic fame.
We're Denver resident.
That's right.
great. Coming up here in a second, Rachel, we're going to have another person joining us because they're going to talk a little bit about state ballot issues too. So I thought it'd be great to have both of you on at the same time. It's actually going to be Luigi Del Puerto, who's the editor of the Denver Gazette and Colorado Politics. He's going to join us here in about a minute or two. And again, we could talk for 4 hours just on the 14 ballot issues. So,
Well, and we also we've been asking everybody for their bold prediction for tonight. What do you think? It's got to be a bold prediction. It can't just be a prediction. Has to be a bold prediction. Give us a bold prediction for tonight.
I don't know that I have any bold predictions.
Too much like a politician there. We're going to have something here. Are we going to pick up any seats in the state house? Are we going to pick up any seats in the states? Or Republicans going to pick up any seats in the state house?
say,
or
you
state
got to
Senate?
clarify which
I need
party
to clarify
when you
that.
say we.
Who we're talking about? Barely a Republican these days.
Yeah, sorry for the lack of bold predictions. I'm more just the facts, ma'am. But in terms of the state races, I don't think we're going to see the Senate take a supermajority. That's my bold prediction.
Which is probably good.
What else do you have for us tonight?
Well, I've been looking at the history of the initiative and referendum process in Colorado. As I said, thinking about my friend's reaction those years ago to her doorstop of a ballot, and just thinking about how much we have been leaders in Colorado in terms of our reforms and access improvements, and we've got so much to be proud of in Colorado in terms of how we've led the nation to make voting easy and accessible for so many people. We weren't the first or the most populous state, for example, to go to all mail ballot elections, but we really have become the gold standard thanks to a lot of collaboration among local and state officials and the work to gain trust with voters. And it's paid off. We are consistently one of the top 5 states for turnout in the country. Last year, or the last presidential election, we were number 2. We were only beat by the good people of Minnesota by 2 percentage points with a turnout of 77%. And we're also the 5th highest state in the country for youth voter turnout, which is pretty cool. They're the voting group that votes the least, except here in Colorado.
Well, that's something to be proud of. I can tell you, I anecdotally know this to be true about young people. My daughter Camille just voted yesterday.
First time?
First time voting in a presidential election.
That's awesome. I was looking too at the topics we have voted on most since 1880. You guys want to take a guess as to what is the top topic by far?
Initiative topic?
I'll give you a hint. We're not doing much of it this year. Not at the state level, maybe at the local level.
One more time.
The most voted on topic since 1880 in Colorado by a lot. I saw a lot of hand waving, but I can't hear you anymore. Now I see finger pointing.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All right, welcome back. Sorry for the technical
Difficulties.
difficulties. I think we have Luigi Del Puerto from Colorado Politics and the Denver Gazette. Luigi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What are you seeing so far? I think some of the initial returns have come in for Colorado. Have you had a chance to take a look at them?
Yeah, I have. So in right now we have results from Denver, and no surprises. Kamala Harris is winning the county of Denver by a pretty healthy margin right now, based on the early and unofficial count. About let me do a quick math here. Yeah, close to maybe 200,000 votes so far counted. She's winning 79% of the vote in Denver. Again, that's not a surprise. A lot of political observers are watching not whether she's going to win or not, but what her margin of the victory is going to be statewide, especially since that might have some tangible effects on some of these major congressional races, notably in Congressional District 8 and maybe even Congressional District 3. Also, again, CD3 is not a split district, on paper, and in past performances, that's a Republican district. In Denver so far, it looks like the fur ban is losing. It looks like it, and it also looks like the voters here are so far favoring the sales tax hike for Denver Health. This is the proposal that would generate about $70 million for Denver. But Mayor Mike Johnston's affordable housing sales tax hike proposal, which is estimated to generate about $100 million annually, not so much. Again, it's early and unofficial count, and this is just kind of the very first uh, uh, results that are kind of trickling in.
And do we, Luigi, anything on the statewide ballot initiatives yet?
Let me take a peek at the about initiatives. Give me like 2 seconds here.
Okay.
Um, so it looks like, let me just go to the big ones, okay?
Yep.
All right, so abortion rights. This is the proposal to add, abortion rights, enshrine abortion rights in the Colorado Constitution. That's winning by a pretty healthy margin, 63% right now. Again, early count, about 800,000 votes so far counted. Constitutional amendments have a higher hurdle. They need to get the approval of 55% of the vote, not a simple majority. The constitutional amendment to add school choice in the state constitution, that appears to be losing at this point, 54 to 46%. Again, this is early count, and most of this is probably coming from Denver at this point. The proposal to prohibit the hunting of big cats, mountain lions, lynx, and bobcats, that's also losing by about 9 points, 10 points, maybe 10 points, 54 to 45%. This is probably a bit more concerning for Proposition 127. Again, a lot of these are results coming from Denver. So to see this proposal losing with votes coming from maybe the urban areas, probably a big problem for Proposition 127. Big money being spent here. And then let me just go to the really big proposal that would potentially alter the way elections are conducted in Colorado. That is Proposition 131. This is ranked choice voting. Lots of big money millions of dollars being spent here. That is also losing right now, 56 to 44%. Again,
And you're saying that's primarily Denver results?
Primarily, a lot of these primarily Denver results. Very early count. These are the ballots that have been processed early on, and now we're just getting tabulated, and we're seeing them. This doesn't count the in-person votes yet. Those need to be processed. These are, again, really early results at this point.
Okay.
All right. Hey, thanks, Luigi. We appreciate your time, and we may call you again later.
Have fun, guys.
Thanks. All right, guys, can we bring Rachel back in? All right, Rachel, are you there?
I think I am.
Nice. Are you getting any of the feedback? We just lost her. Oh, there you are.
I can hear you.
We can hear you too.
Okay. Interesting to hear those early results.
I know.
I'm kind of shocked by him.
Yeah, rank choice losing by that much, and the trophy hunting.
Losing by that much.
Yeah.
The hunting one doesn't surprise me too much. I've been reading a lot of polling by our friends over at the Colorado Polling Institute, which is a bipartisan group that does work just here in the state. And they asked Colorado voters what were the best and worst ideas that we'd had that we passed at the ballot in recent years. And wolves came in at the very bottom. And I think a lot of folks that I've talked to are looking at the question on big cat hunting kind of through that lens of how legislating wildlife management at the ballot worked out.
Interesting. That would make sense. There definitely is a lot of concern about the wolf issue and how it's been handled.
The other thing I think is interesting from that polling is, it'll come as no surprise to you two that what's really on Coloradans' minds is checkbook issues. Folks are really feeling the cost of living and concerned about making ends meet, paying the bills, and so forth. And if you look at those 14 measures that we had on our state ballots, at least, I think it's a little different at the local level. there really aren't any issues addressing cost.
What do you mean by that, addressing cost?
Well, we've got questions on abortion, on criminal justice, on wildlife management, school choice, how we're running our elections, a couple of questions on that, but nothing, no tax questions. And of course, you know, we were supposed to have a couple of property tax questions, and those were headed off by a special session of the legislature and a deal that was cut at the very last minute to take those off of our ballots. But there's just a little bit of a disconnect there between what Coloradans are experiencing on a daily basis and what we're deciding on, again, at least at the state ballot. There are some questions, as Luigi noted, at the Denver level and around the state that have to do with finances.
Interesting. That is an interesting thought.
Yeah, I hadn't really looked at it that way. In looking at some of the other ones, it looks like school choice is behind. Retaining the additional sports betting tax revenue is ahead. The firearms and ammunition excise tax is ahead. I mean, some of these aren't surprising at all, but there's a couple that, yeah, I definitely thought would be going the other way.
Which ones, Kyle? I'm curious what surprises you.
Well, I thought ranked choice voting would win, and maybe it will. I mean, it's still early, but it's behind. And like we were talking about a little bit ago, the trophy hunting, I really thought that would pass.
I'm a little surprised on ranked choice voting as well. I've heard it was polling well, and I know a lot of people are feeling concerned about what they feel is a level of partisanship in our elections that they're not feeling very good about. And of course, the idea behind ranked choice voting was to have candidates appeal to a broader swath of voters. But I know just anecdotally, and folks that I'm talking to in the last week or two really started to have some concerns about what that would do to confidence in our election systems and whether making that big of a change at this point was a good idea. So maybe people are having some second thoughts at the last minute.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I'm looking at the map and it's more than just Denver. There's counties reporting from all over the state. Now, not that many. I mean, only 6% of the population, but it is spread out around the state.
Do you think this has anything to do with the recent revelations that the Secretary of State's office had revealed some passwords to voting machines on their website?
That I hadn't thought about either, but you know, when that came out, I'd love to know what percentage of people had already voted when that issue hit.
Well, that's a good point.
And it might have had some impact, though, with the people who hadn't voted yet.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting thought. Well, I think we have Joe in as well. Rachel, you're welcome to hang out for a couple of minutes to hear what Joe says about the national races.
Gentlemen and ladies, welcome. Happy election night.
Look at you.
Yes,
Rachel, you should have been at the party instead of from your car.
I was at the party.
She was. We both were celebrating Kamala's eminent victory, getting ready to party like it's 1999.
But I think in 1999, didn't George W. Bush win?
Well, no, those were the golden Clinton years when we used to know how to balance budgets.
Okay.
Ooh, cheap shot.
It goes quality. Dancing Joe,
Oh, yeah.
what do you got for us?
Well, just a quick note. Many people don't know. I actually made 3 albums in high school. Dancing Joe was my nickname, and I was very sought after on the dance floor. I just want to let that be known. And I actually had a musical career.
Well, if there's some downtime later, we may call on that skill from you for entertainment.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So, okay, couple random thoughts. I still believe America is going to pass Trump like a bad kidney stone. I think Kamala gets to 292 electoral college votes. I still believe the frame of a prosecutor versus a felon, a woman versus a man, a youthful person versus an old timer, and a patriot versus treason, or my favorite, a woman's defender versus a hands-made tail champion, that Kamala will eventually win this, although the early voting is going as we expected. Now, in terms of some of the Colorado closer to home initiatives, obviously people love to tax guns for mental health. They want to keep choice, stay off of, your hands off a woman's body. They don't want no new taxes. Michael Johnson has never been good at the tax initiative piece. I think he's going to go down in flames tonight. People are very skeptical of Kent theory and changing the political system. I think about Franklin Roosevelt trying to stack the Supreme Court in the 30s. They view someone trying to run for governor and trying to stack the deck in his favor. They're going to reject him and reject that. And they want to keep Colorado wild, and they're going to support law enforcement with the $350 million. And then on the national scene, one quick point. I think Congressman Allred is going to send Ted Cruz back into Cancun.
They've already called it for Ted Cruz.
Nope, they have not called all the votes. The southern part of that state is not yet in. I'm telling you. Thank you, sir. I'm on a podcast, but appreciate you. But yeah, no, that's one of my fans in the back. No, but I think Cruz is still going to go down. I'm telling you, because Fox may have called it, but I don't think CNN and MSNBC have.
All right, what do you see in the presidential election? What do you see in North Carolina?
I think Kamala wins North Carolina, and she still sweeps the blue North, my home state of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And I think she's going to lose Georgia, win Nevada, and lose Arizona.
Wow. I just don't see it. Well, it looks like 131 is still losing, and we've got almost 750,000 votes in, and it's losing 55-40, 45, 56-40.
Yep.
Yeah. How many total votes are we expecting in Colorado? Does anybody know?
3.6 million, I think, 3.7 million.
Okay, so 750,000 is only 20%.
Yeah.
I might be a little bit higher than that, but yeah, it's.
I think we still have a long ways to go before the night's over. But so far, ballot initiatives, Colorado, not doing what we expected.
Here's the great part. In Kansas right now, with 54% of the ballot in, or votes in, Kamala's ahead.
That's amazing.
I know.
It's not going to last.
No. Hey, Mark, one other quick point. In Virginia, there's two bellwether congressional races, Virginia 2 and Virginia 7, and they're splitting. And so far, that's the theme of the night as well. Both sides put in at least $20 million aside on both races. So watch Virginia 2 and Virginia 7. And obviously, Virginia at the presidential level is much higher than expected, or much closer than expected.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fascinating. I still maintain and think Trump is going to pull this out at the end of the night, and Dancing Joe's fourth record will then get released.
If Trump wins, I will make my fourth album, and it'll be a tribute to you, Mark.
That's right. So we have our first results in from Senate District 12. It's kind of interesting. Only 10 votes counted thus far, and Mark Schneider's got 6 of them, and Stan Vanderwerf has 4. That's one of the big races we're going to be watching tonight from a state perspective. Scott Bright doing much better in District 13 than we thought he was, with about 38,000 votes in right now. Scott Bright, that's a pickup opportunity for Republicans. That's a seat kind of Brighton, Adams County. Looks like Scott Bright is doing pretty well there. Any comments on that, Joe?
Well, no, I think Snyder still pulls that out. I think Representative Catlin wins, by the way, on the western slope.
He's up big.
And the Republican, I think, actually ekes it out in Priola's old seat. But I think Snyder wins by 10 points in the Springs.
Yeah, it's interesting. That literally only 10 votes counted in that race thus far.
Like the township in Maine that votes at midnight.
It's those first couple in,
Yeah.
but only 10 votes. It's kind of interesting in that race. So, what are we seeing in the state house racing?
Mark, I'll get back to you on that one. I still think so far it's status quo, but not enough results are really in to kind of make an informed opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Nothing's going to change in that race, or nothing's going to change in the state house. Republicans may pick up a seat or two,
Yep.
but status quo. And I'm curious, Joe, what do you think the impact of gerrymandering has had in the state of Colorado?
Yeah, Mark, you and I disagree on that one. Ever since we changed the regulations on having retired judges, computer programs draw the lines for the 100 state legislative seats, I don't think most folks in Colorado think the seats are gerrymandered. I think they're pretty competitive. Obviously, if you're on the western slope, you're going to have more conservative districts, same with the Eastern Plains. And if you look at most Jefferson County seats, pretty competitive. I just think Democrats lately have been out hustling the Republicans in some of these tight races. And I think the demographics have changed in this state. We're basically California, except for Tabor.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we're competitive races in the state house and state senate. I mean, if you look at it tonight, we have half of the state senate seats are up. It means that 17 of them are being voted on tonight, and of those, maybe 2 of them are actually competitive.
Yeah, but that gets, okay, we're going to get knee deep on this topic, but that's because voters, I really believe, want contiguous state senate and state representative districts that reflect the values of that particular region. I think the folks in El Paso County, the hardworking folks, like to have, for the most part, more conservative leadership. Same with the Eastern Plains, where you and I do a lot of work. I think they like the fact that their districts tend to be a little bit more conservative because that reflects the population. So when you draw the districts, you have to reflect those contiguous boundaries and the values of that region. Same with Denver and Boulder.
I just think we've drawn those districts in such a way that very few of them are actually competitive. It's just not happening.
But how do you make an Eastern Plains, let's say Baca County, Southeast Colorado area competitive when it's 2-1 Republican over a Democrat? Because that's, and I respect the fact that's where more Republicans live. It's like Boulder. How do you make Boulder a competitive district with Republicans? I mean, it's the Republic of Boulder for a reason. I just think there's some natural boundaries where folks congregate and live to make districts either more left or right.
I mean, I certainly think that's fair. I mean, that is an issue that we've had to deal with in the state of Colorado, but it's tough.
But to your point, I'd love to see the suburbs be more 50-50. Like the 8th Congressional District, to me, that's a great example where you have a top 10 race in the country with Gabe and Yadira. To me, that's the way it should be. It's just hard at the state level.
Yeah, I agree with that to a degree, but to the degree that we are gerrymandered in the state of Colorado, we could do a lot better. We could make a lot more competitive district than we have.
Well, Mark, I will work with you on an initiative in 2025.
You remember the midnight gerrymander?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
The midnight gerrymander.
Yeah, I've only cried twice in politics in my life, and that was the first time. Yeah, that one was a gut punch to see how raw power is exercised. The second time I cried was 2016 when Trump won.
And then it was the light of day gerrymander for the Democrats in 2010.
Hey, but at least we did it the old-fashioned way.
Just shoved it down our throats.
Yeah. So,
All right, guys,
oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I got to run here in a minute, but I'm sorry. I'll take one more question because I got to head to a different party.
God, I don't necessarily have anything right now. What do you? else do you have, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just going to say anything we've seen that's been a surprise to you tonight, Joe?
Yeah, 131 and Mayor Johnson's tax increase. They don't want taxes, and they don't want the political system messed with. The same way voters rejected Franklin Roosevelt's packing of the court in the 1930s. They just see shenanigans, and they reject it. And then, Mark, back to your point, if you're going to raise taxes, you got to be really specific, even more specific than he was on why the taxes are being raised. And so far, he's not winning that battle.
And I think that's an issue where he has not done a good job of talking to the voters and explaining why he needs that tax increase. I think that's just really the issue there.
Because Denver has voted for tax increases by 90% over the last 20 years, and he assumed they would continue to do so. But so far, that's not the case.
All right. Well, we've taken up too much of your time, my friend. We appreciate
I'll be back.
And can we give you a call back a little bit later on?
And I'll be back later when Kamala declares victory. God bless these United States of America.
Appreciate that.
Guys. So quick update on the presidential race. Looking at kind of the CNN results here. We've got 23 states and the District of Columbia have been called, and not one of them is a surprise. There's nothing so far. So we're kind of clearing the decks to wait for the 7 states that are probably going to decide this. But based on what's been called, Trump has 154 electoral votes and Kamala Harris has 81.
Well, we have some early results in our state legislative races. Kind of a switch from Mark Catlin being up by a fair margin now to Cole Berger in Senate District 5. Cole Berger's up 53-47 roughly in that district with about 49,000 votes counted. That would be a pickup opportunity for the Democrats, and that would be something that gets us to a supermajority for the Democrats in the state house or in the state Senate. Cleve Simpson has a pretty fairly significant lead over his challenger, Vivian Smotherman, in Senate District 6. That's kind of down in the Alamosa area. He's got a pretty handy lead, 53-48, but only about 21,000 votes have been counted in that district. I'm surprised we still haven't seen much at all or nothing out of El Paso County thus far.
Nothing. Yeah, I mean, the 10 votes in the one race, but that was probably for what fell outside the boundaries.
Yeah, that's my guess is that's what came from Teller County or something like that, right? That's not from El Paso County. Maybe this would be a good time to talk about our sponsors, Kyle.
So again, we really appreciate our sponsors for tonight: Furry Friends Incorporated, Stubby's Grooming Salon, and Poor Richards. Really appreciate their support for the podcast. And we, looking at one of the things that I was just noticing is with some updated returns, the herd and Frisch race in CD3 has narrowed considerably. And it's within 2 points right now and only separated by about 4,000 votes out of 227,000 that have been counted. So that one is looking very close.
Yeah, and I think we still have a lot more votes to be counted in that race tonight, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I still think Hurt is going to win that. We have one of our favorite guests of all time, Kyle. Liberal Lois is on the line. She's going to talk to us a little bit about some of the ballot initiatives that are happening.
Great.
Get on here, Pat. Am I
We
on?
have you on, Liberal Lois.
Do you have me?
We've got you.
All right. Well, you know, the biggest thing is, Mark, that you and I have been talking about, for years actually, is the process itself and how important it is for Coloradans to recognize that when they pass ballot issues, they are in many ways, not entirely, but in many ways competing with representative government. And that's of concern to me as a practitioner, as a student, as a teacher of American government, I worry that we are continually undermining our democratic republic, which is what the founders created. And when we do things like ballot, what did somebody call it the other day? Ballot box biology, and tell the Department of Wildlife how to manage the wildlife populations in Colorado, instead of trusting that the experts who have been appointed by the governor know what they're doing. And it's disturbing. And I'm saying this as someone who despises the concept of trophy hunting, but I also want to be certain that Coloradans realize that there are people for whom they have voted, governor, representative, senator, who do have the authority to manage these things. So it's of concern to me. Another piece of it is certainly tax policy. Tax policy is extremely complex. You and I both served in the legislature, Mark. We both know how complex it is. And having the tax policy decided at the ballot also undermines the ability of the elected representatives to do their job. What most people don't understand is that the majority of ballot issues are put there with no participation from the legislature. There's a differentiation, and we can go through exactly what that is. It's complex, but anyway, the legislature can refer both statutory and constitutional change, and citizens can collect signatures for both as well. But more and more and more, we're seeing citizens with money circumvent the elected body to push very particular pet peeves, so to speak. And
For pet projects.
Yes.
yeah, and I think it's undermining the ability of the elected representatives to do their job. And furthermore, when it is passed on the ballot, if it's constitutional, the legislature can't make any changes whatsoever unless it goes back to the ballot. If it's statutory, the legislature could make changes, but even when it is changeable, the legislature is hesitant to go against what citizens have said they want. So it's a difficult situation. There are ways that we could rein it in. There are ways that we could make some further differentiation. I don't think we want to undo the initiative process 100%, although only about half the states actually have citizen initiatives. But I don't think Colorado wants to abandon it, but I do think that we ought to be looking, and the legislature, it's their job, to look into how to pull it back a little bit so that more of the authority that should be vested in the elected representatives actually stays there.
Yeah, well, Lois, we just had Rachel Beck on the podcast, and she was talking about the citizen initiative process, talking about how there was some polling done a couple of years ago, or maybe it was even this year, about what Coloradans think about the citizen initiative process. And she told us 81% of the electorate in Colorado believes that we should have the citizen initiative process in place. And as we're kind of looking at things going tonight, and for me, my issue has been less with the overall citizen initiative process and more about what belongs in the Colorado Constitution and what doesn't belong in the Colorado Constitution. And quite frankly, I think there are very few things that actually belong in the Colorado Constitution. So if you printed out the U.S. Constitution, it just takes up a few sheets of paper, right? You print out the Colorado Constitution, it takes up a whole ream of paper. And here we are tonight, seven constitutional amendments on the ballot. 5 of those were suggested by the legislature. The other 2 suggested by citizen initiatives that we've been talking about. And of those 7, we have 5 of them currently passing. So 5 out of 7 passing. Looks like we're going to have 5 new things in our Constitution. What do you think about that?
You know, as you recall, I worked my entire career in the legislature to differentiate between constitutional change and statutory change. And we finally got that done several years ago. So at least now, Coloradans can look on the ballot and they can see that an amendment changes the Constitution and a proposition changes statute. It says right on the ballot, constitutional, statutory. So I think as elections continue, citizens will get a better sense of that distinction. And I think that's very important. Signature collection for ballot for constitutional amendments is a different threshold, and it has to pass at a different threshold. So I think all of that is a step in the right direction. What's interesting to me is that the statistic that you just quoted, that 81% believe in the process and want to have ballot initiatives available. And I wouldn't argue with that. But I would guess that if you, tomorrow, after this whole process is over, if you did a poll saying, were you satisfied that you had so many ballot issues, or did you like having that many ballot issues? You'd probably get about the same 80% saying, no, there ought to be fewer. I believe in having the process available, but I'd like to see it because it took me a half an hour or whatever somebody would say to fill out my ballot. And I don't even know enough about bail or about big game hunting or whatever to make an intelligent decision. And I think that that is what is frustrating to most people, while believing in the system itself, the option, but being frustrated by how much actually ends up on the ballot. So we have to find a balance there.
Yeah, your lips to God's ears. We do have to find a balance in how we do this at some point, because it seems to me 14 statewide ballot initiatives, that doesn't even include all the local stuff we had on the ballot this year. It's impossible for people to your point, to know and understand what they're doing and to be able to fill out their ballot accurately. I mean, I can't tell you the number of people that called me up and said, Mark, help me out here. I need to understand what this stuff does. You read it, it sounds like a lawyer who gets paid by the word wrote these ballot initiatives, and they're hard to understand, and it's just not a responsible way to govern for people.
Well, see, and that's part of what we could try to massage. For example, I was just on my morning walk the other day talking with some of my former constituents about this issue, because they come up to me like they ask you, and they know, what the heck's going on. And they said, why can't you write them better? And I said, the you is what's significant. Neither the legislature nor the nonpartisan staff has any authority over that language. I can come up as a citizen with whatever I want to say that belongs either in statute or constitution, and I can get the signatures. And what I wrote as a citizen with zero input from anyone with any real knowledge about the issue could become part of our Colorado Constitution, but certainly part of our statutory law. And I think people don't understand that. They don't realize that neither the legislature nor the nonpartisan staff has authority to change that language. And the people don't realize that the legislature hasn't said, this is what I want on the ballot. And then conversely, when it passes, they come to us as legislators. They did with you and with me both when we were there. Well, you need to fix this. You need to change that. And, we didn't have anything to do with putting it there. And then they think that we have the authority to deal with it. And again, if it's statutory, we would have the authority, the legislature would. But it's something that most legislators are hesitant to change if the people have passed it. So it's really a complicated situation.
Yeah, and certainly the one that I always point to, Lois, is I think it was Amendment 20, not the legalization of marijuana, but legalization of medical marijuana when it first passed. I think that was back in 2000, and literally articulated and memorialized in the Colorado Constitution forever is that glaucoma is a legitimate medical use for marijuana in the state of Colorado. I actually talked to my eye doctor about that at one point way back in the day, and he said to me, Mark, in order for marijuana to have any impact on glaucoma, you'd literally have to smoke like 200 joints a day. It would take that much. But it is in our Constitution that glaucoma is a legitimate use for medical marijuana with zero, absolutely no evidence to indicate that it would actually work as a medical remedy for glaucoma.
Well, and if you smoke 200 joints a day, the smoke alone is going to ruin whatever your eyes are going to
benefit.
Don't forget that same amendment directed the legislature to regulate like alcohol. And I can't remember if we were on the Judiciary Committee at that time or not, but I remember being on the Judiciary Committee and spending hours trying to figure out how to get those regulations. I think that was when it was recreational passed, how to figure out this entire issue of regulation of the of marijuana, either medical or recreational, and what that meant. Regulate like alcohol. Well, you know, and that gets in the Constitution. And so how does the legislature figure that out? I remember hours and hours of dealing with that and trying to figure out, well, what does that exactly mean? And for example,
or how to deal with stuff that the Constitution didn't understand what it meant.
Exactly. I mean, I remember very clearly the entire discussion about what level of marijuana in the blood, because regulate like alcohol, well, then you have a blood alcohol level, and that's how you determine if you're driving impaired. Well, if you are on medical marijuana, the level of cannabis in your system might be different because it's medical and you're used to having it in your system. Whereas if it's recreational, maybe that would be different. And how do we make those distinctions? And how is an officer supposed to determine that? And what ought that level be? And I know we got it done. I can't even remember all the details of what we did, but it was agonizing to try to figure it out and to try to be fair to the people who came to testify and to try to listen to the scientists who came to tell us what they knew. And of course, here's the other problem specifically with marijuana in all over the country now. It's still Schedule I federal. So there just is insufficient data to tell us exactly what the impacts of even short-term, let alone long-term use is. Anyway, all of this is getting it way into the weeds. Pardon the bad pun.
Well, Liberal Lois, we certainly appreciated having you on this evening. We always love to get your perspective. Absolutely one of the smartest people I know, if not one of the more misguided people I know. But we certainly love you. Will you promise us that you're going to come back, spend a full hour with us, and help us break down this election after it's all over?
Sure. You just let me know when, and I promise your listeners, I promise the people that I will try to not be quite so esoteric in my comments, although trying and accomplishing are two different things.
We love esoteric comments.
Thanks.
We're the best.
Well,
thanks, Liberal Lois.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, we're going to bring in Conservative Bob now.
Nice.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good evening. Where are you, my friend?
I am at the View House in Littleton, looking out the window, watching the snowfall here with about 16 TV screens around me, trying to digest all the information that I'm getting and listening to you guys as well.
What are you hearing in Colorado? And more importantly, why don't we have any results from El Paso County? Nothing from the county.
Well, so we don't seem to have any results from El Paso County at the moment. What's going on there?
That's what we want to know.
I think they're hand counting.
Oh, well, I took a look at Senate District 12 and saw that Mark Snyder was way out ahead of Stan Vanderwerf and took a big gulp. And then I saw that it was all 10 votes from Teller County and that one precinct we have up there that's primarily Democratic. So I thought, well, no time for panic yet.
So did you ever carry that precinct?
No, I never had to run in that precinct. So that's a good thing. I think there's only about 20 people up there and only 10 of them vote. So it's one of those crazy things when the redistricting committee was drawing lines. They didn't want to break the Green Mountain Falls city limit, so they went up, but they went up into Teller County and turned it into a multi-county district. So, one of those crazy things. Anyway,
Look at any of those
here
other state Senate races.
here at the second.
I said, if you had a chance to look
Hello.
at any of those other state Senate races that we've been concerned about tonight, like Cleve Simpson, Mark Catlin, and the Scott Bright race.
Yeah, so
Brighton.
So the four races we're watching, I just noticed a moment ago that Cleve Simpson was out ahead. Mark Catlin had been behind, but that was probably Steamboat Springs or something, and he pulled ahead. Scott Bright up in Wells County is out ahead, and we don't really have any real results on Senate District 12 and Stan Vanderwerf and Mark Snyder.
So far, has this been what you've expected to see tonight, Bob?
Say again?
I said, is this, are the results as you've expected to see them, or have you seen anything out of the ordinary in these state Senate races?
No. I think they're turning out like we expected, like we'd hoped, what we worked for. So, I'm very gratified. I feel really good at the early results. Those races on the Western Slope are close for us, but we always expected them to be somewhat close. So, again, we feel like right now that we're going to be able to hold our 12-person Senate caucus and keep the Dems from having a supermajority in the state Senate.
How about anything in the state house races? Is there anything that's standing out to you from that perspective tonight?
Yeah, so I'm having trouble with bandwidth there. You're going to have to shoot that at me a couple of times. I know it's frustrating.
Democrats currently have a supermajority in the state house, but there are some expectations that perhaps Republicans could pick up a few seats in the state house tonight. Are you seeing anything there that might indicate Republicans have an opportunity to pick up a seat or two in the state house?
I do, and I haven't been able to kind of check those results. Have you guys looked at them at all to see kind of how that's working? Again, one of the seats we were hoping to pick up was House District 16 there in El Paso County, but as of a few minutes ago, we didn't have any results on that. So the Rebecca Kelty, Stephanie Lehill race that we're watching closely.
And from a national perspective, anything you're seeing there?
So I'm trying to reconnect here.
Yeah, we're just talking about national races. Kyle, any updates from a national perspective?
A couple more called, but again, nothing unexpected. So Trump's at 172 electoral votes and Harris is at 81, but no surprises.
Well, I think so far, not seeing anything that's a big surprise. It looks like Wisconsin is currently neck and neck. Kamala Harris is pulling out to a little bit of a lead in Michigan.
Yep.
As we're seeing things unfold here this evening. But I think Wisconsin's going to be really interesting to watch. If Pennsylvania and Wisconsin both go Trump's way, it looks like Trump might have an opportunity to win this thing tonight.
Yeah, it would be really hard for her. Bob, have you looked at any of the state ballot issues?
Yeah, I just took a look at them a moment ago. I'm going to try to, while we're talking here, I'm going to try to.
Nope, I think we might have just lost Bob.
I just wanted to see if any of them were surprising to him.
Yeah, I think we've lost Bob.
Okay.
Do you have an update for us on anything that's happening with the ballot initiatives or in the state, Kyle?
They've had some more returns come in, but nothing's changed. You still have 131 losing 55-45. Let's see. The funding for public safety is passing 53-47. And then there's really nothing that's definitely changed or any new surprises.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything either. I think we have Bob back.
Oh, good.
Oh, we lost Bob again. Well, maybe.
Yeah. We're going to try this again.
Yeah, nope.
Hey, Bob.
Nope.
Bob, I was trying to ask if any of the state ballot issues were surprising you.
Well, I'm a little surprised at 131. I sort of had the sense for a while that was going to pass, but it doesn't look like it's passing now.
It's down by 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're going to make that up because I don't think that's a particularly partisan issue, other than all the partisans hate it. So that's going to be consistent.
Yeah, and as I'm
going to
looking
be
at
consistent across the board.
Statewide, state House district races that we thought might have a chance to flip back to Republican. A couple aren't reporting at all, but of the rest of those, it seems like the Democrats are winning pretty handily. So once again in Colorado, it really looks like not a whole lot's going to change.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm just running down those results.
What else do you have,
now.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Just trying to look at some of the returns on some of the states they haven't called yet for president. Just over the last few minutes, Trump moved ahead in Pennsylvania slightly. Harris had been ahead earlier. Again, I don't know who all has reported, what areas are left, but with 70% of the vote in North Carolina, Trump's up by 5 points. So, again, doesn't look like North Carolina is going to be close.
Yeah, and the Democrats thought that might be an opportunity for a pickup for Kamala Harris, and maybe also in the state or in the U.S. Senate. But it doesn't look like either one of those is going to change tonight.
It doesn't.
I'm still curious. It seems to me kind of interesting that we're not seeing anything change from a state house perspective, a state senate perspective in the state of Colorado. Yet, it always it's interesting to me, Kyle, when we see the Democrats do very well when it comes to electing people in the state of Colorado. Yet, when it from an initiative process, we tend to typically go a little bit more conservative.
Yep.
And you always wonder why that is.
Yeah. Well,
Do Republicans
I'm
put up great candidates?
Yeah.
And that's a reflection of where we are, or is it just simply a demographic?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's always kind of interesting. I'm also curious tonight. Here we are. It's 10 minutes after 8. We've been going, and we don't have any
El Paso County
results for El Paso County. What is happening over at the clerk and recorder's office? Somebody needs to get a hold of Steve Schlaker and ask what's going on there.
So guys, can you hear me?
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to step away here. I've got a Denver TV interview.
Gardner, are you back?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to step away a minute.
He's back. Okay, Bob.
Okay. I'm going to step away a minute.
Talk with you later after we've got some local results.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think we have a chance for a pickup in House District 16, which would be a big deal if we could do that. So, okay, I'm just going to set it down here and turn off the camera and people look out. Okay.
Now I
All
can't
right.
hear anything.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
These are clean to bring.
All right. Well, I had it before, but now I was getting nothing. I could hear Kyle, but not Bob.
Are we on the break?
It was kind of bizarre. All right. So what else do we have going on here tonight, Kyle? It's just unbelievable to me that we don't have any results in from El Paso County yet. We're starting to see a lot of results come in across the nation in terms of the presidential election and what's happening from a national perspective in the U.S. Senate and Congress, but really not seeing what I think we should be seeing at this point in the night in Colorado.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that we don't. Again, a few more states called nationally. Nothing major. Again, still none of the 7 swing states have been called. And
where are we in the 7 swing states so far?
Arizona trumps ahead. Georgia trumps ahead. Wisconsin, Trump has moved ahead slightly. Michigan, Kamala's ahead. Pennsylvania, Trump is slightly ahead. Is that 7? I don't know if that's 7. But yeah, that's kind of where we're sitting right there. But again, it doesn't look like any of them have enough of a return yet for anybody to call it.
And obviously, I think tonight we've counted more of the results have come in for red states. Obviously, we're seeing more of that. But I think it's interesting as of right now, Trump actually has a lead in the popular vote as well.
Interesting.
Leading 52-48 over Kamala Harris in the national popular vote, which I think is incredibly interesting as we sit right now. And without back to Colorado and talking about what's happening in the state of Colorado, and without any of those results in from El Paso County, which is, by the way, largest county in the entire state of Colorado, about 800,000 citizens that live in El Paso County alone. It's the kind of thing that could, swing some of those ballot initiatives if they were to come in lopsided one way or another. So,
exactly.
Really, until we have those El Paso County results, and I don't think we can call any of the ballot initiatives. But I just think it is still incredibly interesting that we're at a circumstance tonight where we're at about 8:15 and still nothing. We still don't have anything in from El Paso County. It's just a little bit unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it'll, and I haven't seen any announcements from them. I know early on Vince had heard that it could be 8 o'clock. I mean, it used to be it was 7:15 or 7:30 for the first results. It's 8:15 now, and we still don't see anything. So I don't know if anybody has seen any kind of a word on it or where they are, or if they've given any kind of an update. But I who knows what we're going to see. So again, you see some things creeping in Colorado, just little additional results coming in, but nothing has swung dramatically one way or the other. Herd and Frisch still in CD3. It's now out about a 7,000 vote lead for Jeff Hurd with 308,000 votes reported. Lauren Boebert's up by almost 10% now. So some of those things are starting to normalize a little bit with what we thought they might do as more votes have come in. And then again, right now in CD8, Carballo is only up by less than 2% or just a little over 4,000 votes. So that one's kind of close like we thought it was going to be also.
Yeah, I think that's right where we thought those things were going to be. It looks like enough votes are in. I don't think they're quite ready to call this race for Hurd yet, but it looks like that he's starting to expand his lead as the night goes on, and that looks like that's going to be a seat that remains in Republican hands. I mean, obviously, we've talked about Boebert. She's going to win that race tonight. So the real big one we're going to be looking at here is
and El Paso County just
what's going to happen. Well, we're going to be looking at what's going to happen in that CD8 race, but we finally have results in for El Paso County.
Yeah, and Mark Snyder's up by about 3% with 46,000 votes reporting. Again, I'm not 100% sure what percentage that is, but he's got about a 1,500 vote lead there. In House District 16, Stephanie Behill has a 1% lead, less than 300 votes with 25,000 votes reported. So there's another really close one right there. As I'm scrolling down here, Bill Wysong is winning in the county commission race. Then, all right, just trying to see what else is down here.
You know, it's interesting. I'm having an issue with my computer actually updating here tonight. I don't know what is going on, but I'm still showing Snyder with 6 votes and Vanderwerf with 4. So obviously something's not working correctly here for me tonight. So I guess we'll have to rely on what you have for us.
Yeah, so back up I know what I wanted to see. This is 47% of the county votes, right now. 47% of the active voters' ballots have been cast and counted. So at the very least, we're at about almost 50% counted. Now, if we're guessing 85% turnout, what we're seeing here is going to be more than half of the votes that come in the rest of the night in the county.
Sure.
And so again, the state Senate District 12, no change there. Snyder still has his slight lead. So I don't know when the next round of votes will be coming in from El Paso County. But if we start to I wanted to look at some of the local ballot issues as well, like 2C and the marijuana issues. And I'm just trying to, there's just a lot of stuff to scroll
And
through.
are we looking at all this on the Secretary of State's website?
I'm on El Paso County for the local stuff.
That's why I'm not seeing the changes. I'm looking at
Your neck of the woods, the Town of Monument ballot issue is failing. The first one is, the second one's passing.
how about Mayor of Palmer Lake?
That I haven't found yet. Okay, 2C is 73% yes right now. 2D to shoot down. Now, this is going to be really interesting if this happens. 2D to prohibit marijuana is passing, and 300 to allow it is passing. Both
Both of them are going to pass. That'll create an interesting issue, right?
With almost the same margin. Right
yeah,
now.
I think people didn't understand the way those were written. I think it's a big part of the problem if that's the way it comes out. Because I think that the pro-marijuana one was written in such a way that it looked like if you were voting yes, you were voting against. It's kind of like the thing that the county commissioners did several years ago. Shall we limit the commission to 3 terms? I wonder if that has something to do with all of this.
Yeah,
that's what you wonder.
Yeah, that because it definitely was a little bit confusing the way it was written. So I don't know. I mean, what happens? Is the one with the most votes win?
I don't know the answer to that, Kyle. I'm not sure at all what ends up happening there. But I think it creates an interesting issue, and it might create some sort of constitutional issue for us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of fascinating where we are and what's going to happen if both of those pass. Not something I contemplated and even thought about. You kind of figured people knew enough about them. There'd been enough education on them, but maybe it's just a circumstance where there wasn't enough education, and we don't know.
Yeah. So well, hopefully maybe we can find somebody to have on the show tonight that might know the answer to that question and can explain that.
It is kind of absolutely fascinating. So I think it'll be interesting to see, what ends up happening with that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back and see as far as the state issues. Harris is still winning the state by more than 10 points.
Yeah, and I think they've already called the state Colorado for Harris.
Yeah. And I don't know what 4 years ago, I don't know how much Biden won the state by.
Yeah, I think by 9 or 10 points. Yeah.
So
it might have been by 15. I can't remember for sure. But, certainly I know that Biden, obviously won the state handily and by double digits. So Trump may be doing a little bit better than he did against Biden, but still, obviously calling it for Harris tonight.
Yeah.
So still looking for other results in El Paso County, trying to understand what's going on there. We'll see. It looks like the mayor of Palmer Lake, 4 votes is the difference right now. Literally 4 votes is the difference. Shauna Ball has 1,124 votes. Shauna Ball has 564 of them, and Glant Havener has 560. So literally 4 votes. When somebody says to you your vote doesn't matter, you can point to a race like this where it comes down to 4 votes. Now, obviously, I think there are going to be more votes counted there tonight, but we will see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So 4 votes currently separating the mayor of Palmer Lake, Shana Ball, and current mayor Glant Havener. So we'll see what happens in that race. Do we have any updates?
Again, more numbers tripling in on the presidential race. Right now, Trump is ahead by about 0.5% in Wisconsin and by about 2%, 2%, almost 3% actually in Pennsylvania right now with 54% of their votes in. So again, Pennsylvania being a key state for Harris if she's got a path to win here. But other than that, again, other swing states, Arizona's starting to report about 50% of their vote in. Harris has just a very slight lead of about 0.5% or 8,000 votes out of 1.7 million that have been cast. So very, very close in Arizona. She's leading New Mexico, which is not a surprise. Yeah, so.
Looks like I'm seeing a lot of red up there in the in those Great Lakes states right now.
Yeah, there's
Wisconsin and Minnesota right now currently leaning to Trump. What kind of vote do we have in there?
Well, Minnesota has 3% of their vote reported, and Trump is up 60% to 38%. So that one, obviously, with only 3% in. But again, Wisconsin, he's ahead slightly, and you've got 47% in. That shock poll from Iowa the other day that had Harris leading, Trump's actually up by almost 9 points.
In Iowa.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, what was my bold prediction for the night? Do you remember? Can you remember back that far?
That was it. We would know by. I can't remember.
No,
like
that's
that
not
far.
mine. That's
isn't
not
yours?
mine. My bold prediction for tonight was that we would have 2,000 viewers. And I would
That's
like to
right.
thank all 1,700 viewers that we currently have watching us live right now. That's incredible. Thank you for participating in this with us tonight. We're continuing to try to get you as updated results as we can, as quickly as we can, and provide a little bit of analysis along the way.
Yeah.
So thank you to our 1,700 viewers tonight. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. We have Poor Richards has sponsored us tonight with some absolutely delicious pizza. Love having that from Poor Richards. We wish we could have had Richard Scorman on tonight to not just talk with us about pizza and how you make great New York pizza, but also to talk with us about politics in the Pikes Peak region. He's one of the smartest people I know, certainly when it comes to politics in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. But if you want to get a pizza and you live in the downtown area of Colorado Springs, please reach out to Poor Richards. You can find the number to order delicious pizza in the comments below. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Stubbies, where you go handle all of your dog grooming needs. Now, I'm not sure, Kyle, but they might take humans as well. If you haven't had a bath in a while, you can go in and speak with Billy and Janet Huffer, and maybe they'll give you a bath too. I don't know. But that's where I take my dog, Benny, to Stubbies and Monument. They have 4 locations across the Colorado Springs and El Paso County area. Furry Friends, 2 locations, one on the west side at Centennial and Fillmore, the other in Briargate at Woodman and Rangewood, and then also Stubbies Grooming at Woodman and Academy, and their other new location, again, where I take my dog, Benny, in Monument. If you have a need to get your dog groomed, or maybe even yourself, please reach out to Billy and Janet Huffer at one of those 4 locations. You can find numbers in the comments below to reach out to them. And if you mention our podcast and that you heard it here, they're going to give you $5 off anything that you purchase in the store. So please go to Stubbies and Furry Friends for all your needs that way. And again, 1,700 viewers, Kyle. Holy mackerel. Wow.
There we go. And hopefully still growing. So that's really good news. Trying to think who's going to be joining us coming up here.
Well, we can have Bob. Bob is back in the chat. Maybe he's got a little bit better reception now, and we can have a nice conversation with him. How about bringing Bob back in? Mike
Yeah, hey guys, I just had to.
if you could
I
take
just had
that,
to tell
really
the
appreciate that.
Denver TV station how important this race is for Senate Republicans. The good news is that in 3 of our 4 races, we seem like we're holding our own. That we're up, and that's what we need to keep 12.
Updates. Have him back
I'm
in.
disappointed in the early reports on Senate District 12. It's about a 3-point margin there that Mark Snyder's leading by. I suppose it's early, and that's not insurmountable. But the really gratifying thing is that we've got three seats that we're out in front of right now. He's taking a look again at the state results on those. Doesn't look like we're going to pick up much in the House, which is disappointing. But
So does it look like then in the Senate it won't go to a supermajority?
yeah, it looks like we're going to be able to keep them out of the supermajority.
Good. I was trying to think if there was anything else locally that was surprising. Oh, Bob, did you see that both marijuana issues are passing?
Oh, I had not seen that.
Yeah, so they're both passing, and our question is, what does that mean? Is it the one that gets the most votes, or does the city charter override it?
The charter, I think the charter overrides. That's an interesting thing, and it's a really good legal question. So I haven't researched it. You know, I'm doing what you shouldn't do, shooting from the hip. But it would seem to me that if you pass a charter amendment and you pass an ordinance, that the charter provision would then control, because that's the city constitution.
Yeah.
But it does make you wonder what was going through the voters' minds, or did they really understand what they were doing?
Yeah. But that's what we were saying. 300 was written in a way that might have been confusing. I mean, the city charter 2D was very clear. So.
Yeah, I mean that. I remember looking at it when I was doing my own balloting and thinking, you know, a lot of people are gonna be confused by the way that's written. They're gonna think they're voting one way and when they're really voting the other. So
Yeah.
that'll be an interesting discussion if those results hold. It'll be an interesting discussion with the city council tomorrow as to what are you going to do about all that.
Yeah, that might be the most interesting thing that comes out of tonight, at least locally.
And Bob, you know, I'm just curious. In your old district, that's the one that is now your term limited. We have Mark Snyder and Stan Vanderwerf running to replace you, and it looks like about 46,000 votes have been cast in that district. Can you give us any sort of historical perspective in terms of how many more votes can we be looking for? You know, Snyder's got about a 3% lead. Is that something you could see changing as the night goes on?
Well, our polling told us that was a neck and neck race, and so I'm a little disappointed in those results. But you know, when I ran for my district the last time and before, it was completely different. And I have said I'm really happy I'm not having to run for my seat again, because I think that would be a really tough race no matter who was in that race. So, you know, there were millions of dollars spent on that race. I don't know if you guys noticed. I'm sure a lot of your listeners did. I turned on the TV before the Broncos game the other day, and within one commercial cycle, there was one ad that said that Mark Snyder was a really terrible person and you needed to vote for Stan Vanderwerf. There was a real commercial, and then one that said Stan Vanderwerf's a really terrible person and you need to vote for Mark Snyder. And those kind of ads before a football game like that don't come cheap. So it's been a really tough slog for both of those candidates.
Well, but do you see a lot more votes coming in that race? Like, so, you know, for example, how many people voted the last time that you ran in that that race? Was it more than 46,000? I mean, is this something that you can see changing as the night goes on?
Well, I think it's possible, but I'm not, and I don't know, not having run for this district and the way it's composed, Mark. I'm a little bit at a disadvantage as to what I think is going to happen. I'm just scrolling through to get to the votes there.
Well, I can tell you, it's about 46,000 votes we're showing cast in that race so far.
Yeah. I can't believe that there's a lot more votes, though, if you look at the other Senate races around. Although, you got one like, and you have differences while you have roughly the same population. You do have differences in the numbers of actual registered voters. But for instance, if you look at Senate District 5 over in the Western Slope, which is the Mark Gatlin Cole Berger race where Mark's ahead by a couple of points, they've got 65,000 votes in there. And then the Cleve Simpson Smotherman race, where Cleve's got a comfortable lead of about 9 points, that's 77,000. So I think we still got some to report, just given what we're going to see there. But it's all about trends at this point. When the next report of votes comes in, you're either going to see a little bit of a change, which might give some hope for us to stand, or you're going to see that it holds, or maybe it widens. So that's the thing to watch, is this next drop of votes and when that's going to come.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating as the night goes on to see if anything changes there. I think the other issue, as I'm looking at that race, Snyder's got about a 3-point lead, and you can see there and look to know and understand that's one of the few races where there's a libertarian running. And what kind of percentage is the libertarian taking? 3% in that race. And I'll tell you, I've made an argument numerous times that libertarians getting into these races and doing nothing more than raising their hand at an assembly and then doing absolutely nothing else and impacting the outcome of election isn't the way our election system was designed to handle things. I think it's wrong that, again, a libertarian can just, Kyle Bob, that a libertarian can do literally nothing more than raise their hand in an assembly and then go sit on their couch and eat Cheetos and watch TV and impact the outcome of an election. And I think this is one of those arguments that people make for getting rid of the caucus system in the state of Colorado. And, maybe saying, hey, you got to go out there and gather some signatures, maybe pay a little bit of a deposit, put some skin in the game to show that you're actually going to be a serious candidate. Any thoughts on that, Bob?
Well, yeah. You take someone like Barb Kirkmeyer, who ran in Congressional District 8 2 years ago. The Libertarian in that race took more votes than what her losing margin was. And you have to believe that may be different. I just did the math quickly for the Libertarian here on Senate District 12. The difference between Snyder and Vanderwerf right now is 1,377 votes. The Libertarian has taken 1,255. So it's not quite the margin, but look for that as it goes, because it could be possible that Libertarian is going to have taken more than the margin. I remember way back in 19 probably would have been 1998 when Bill Owens and Gail Shuttler were in the gubernatorial race, and Owens won by 11,000 votes, and the third party, Constitution Party, which is kind of the equivalent of libertarians, got far more votes than what that margin was, and we were awake that evening till 2 or 3 in the morning before we knew the bill Owens had won. So these third party candidates are spoilers. You know, you hear.
Oh, we just lost Bob.
Yep.
Once again, and I'm sure he was giving us great analysis there. But you know, as I look at the outcome of some of these races, you know, we've seen it time and time again in Colorado, Kyle, where again a libertarian, and this is one of my pet peeves in these races, the libertarian just raises the hand and literally does nothing else, and can have an impact on the outcome of an election. And I think one of the things that the Democrats got good at doing in the state of Colorado is getting those libertarians to, or getting Democrats to become libertarians and raise their hand and go get 10 or 12% of the vote. We saw it down in House District 17. 10 years ago, we had this libertarian that was really a Democrat, Susan Quellich Nelson, pulling 10-11% of the vote. And the Republican loses by 6. And all Susan Quellich Nelson did was raise her hand in assembly, and that's it. So, Coloradans, I'm making the case tonight. This perhaps is a reason that maybe we should consider getting rid of the caucus system in the state of Colorado and requiring every candidate to have some sort of skin in the game, where it's more than just raising their hand at an assembly and again impacting the outcome of an election.
I agree.
What are we seeing nationally, Kyle?
Again, still no states have been called that are surprise. But some of the results in specific states, Trump has a very slight lead in Arizona with 1.8 million votes. He's up by 1,000. Trump still has a 2.5 point lead in Pennsylvania, which again, that could come down to being the state. Harris is up in Michigan, big now by 7%. Wow, that jumped. But Trump is now ahead in Wisconsin by 1%, by 1/10 of 1%. So who knows? Arizona and Wisconsin are very, very close. But if Trump carries Pennsylvania, it might be really hard for Harris to win.
Yeah, I think that is going to be difficult if he is able to, in fact, carry Pennsylvania. It certainly, if he gets Pennsylvania and one of those other Great Lakes states, I think it's going to be over for her tonight, and he's going to win it. And it looks like he's up in Georgia right now. As you said earlier, that lead in North Carolina is growing. Georgia, his lead is actually 3%. What did it come down to 4 years ago when he called up
11,000 votes?
Need 11,670 votes or whatever it is. Well, it seems that he's up there by about 150,000 votes right now. So, so it looks like he. So far, at least tonight, Georgia is trending President Trump's way, and that's with 86% of the vote in. You got Wisconsin only got 54% of the vote in, but man, it is just neck and neck there right now. In fact, President Trump right now has about a 900 vote lead. 900 votes out of about 1.9 million cast in Wisconsin right now. So going to be interesting.
We have about 55% of turnout as far as ballots cast right now in Colorado. and nothing else has really changed.
Yeah. And again, what was my bold prediction tonight?
2,000 viewers.
And you know what we're looking at right now?
How many?
2016 viewers. Thanks for helping us do it and get to our bold prediction tonight. We just got a text message from our good friend Bob Gardner, and the reason he dropped out the last time, not because he's 70 years old, but because the battery died on his phone.
Oh, funny.
That's why we lost him.
It looks like Lohinos is in the waiting room to talk to us, and I think Bree is going to come back.
All right, let's bring Lohinos in. He's a current El Paso County Commissioner, and somebody that's been a friend of ours for a long time, a great guy. And Lohinos is outgoing commissioner in Commissioner District 3, but he's had a lot of great insight into what's happening in El Paso County, and he's going to help us out with some of these local races. Lohinos, what are you seeing tonight?
Hey, thanks, gentlemen.
there,
Thanks, guys.
Lohinos?
I just walked out. I think you heard the crowd there. The crowd there. Good night in most
Well, I guess we'll hear
aspects,
from
but
Lohinos later.
the races we're looking at. Can you hear me?
I can't hear him.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. So I don't know if you just saw that. I can hear you. I can hear you, both of you, gentlemen.
Okay.
So over
Start
here
again.
at the Boot Barn Hall. Sure. Thanks, gentlemen. County Commissioner District 4 here at Boot Barn Hall with the watch party for most of the Republicans here. The big name here, of course, is going to be Congressman-elect. We hope. We believe Jeff Crank here. The Republican candidates are here, and as you saw in the back, there's a sellout crowd. So it's great to see them. And, early results. Commissioner, very locally, even though some of the results have some good distance and some victory in the numbers, they have officially here called 3 races. They started off by bringing up County Commissioner District 2, Carrie Geithner, for her reelection. She has a big early lead, and so they called that. State Representative elect Jarvis Caldwell out of for Larry List. Some are very positive. A couple are. We'll see what.
You're kind of.
Yeah, Lohinos, you're coming in kind of spotty for us. Can you move to a little
Commissioner
better
Vander-
location and maybe give us a little more of a discussion then?
Sure. Hopefully this is good. Is this a little bit better?
That's better, yeah.
I got another crowd here listening, but it's a podcast of election results, and so so we have a lot of people trying to see some results here, and we're hoping that we can turn some the crowd around. But we saw Commissioner Vanderwerf behind in the state Senate race, and also that Rebecca McKelty is losing, and we also saw, I think, Jim Bowlings, and then on the Democrat side winning expected, but still tight races on several of those.
Well, and I'll tell you, Lohinos, I think
Any
that
questions on
Rebecca
that, or
Kelty
my
race
take
is
on
actually
that?
a lot closer than I thought it was going to be at this point. I mean, we're talking just a few hundred votes.
Yeah, and that's the one I'm really paying attention to, because I think they pull off
Rebecca
tonight.
Kelty
And
from
so we'll see what the
Stephanie
next
Beal. So
batch
Kelty
of
has made a
numbers
much
are.
bigger
And see if
in that district than I thought. Any comments on that?
Yes, and that's the one I think I really want to follow to see if we can reverse that, and we'll see what the trend looks like over the next hour.
And I think, what's your thought on, you have Bill Wysong winning in Commissioner District 3, which is kind of western El Paso
Were you able to
County
get any
and
of that?
Colorado Springs. And then you have Stan Vanderwerf losing we have Stan Vanderwerf losing in Senate District 10, which is roughly the same geographic area. What accounts for that?
And are looking good, and as well as Bill Wysong.
He's kind of cutting in and out.
Yeah, you're still cutting in and out.
I don't know if you already get any of that, gentlemen.
One more time.
Okay, I've logged on work, and I can't. If I go inside, I think it'll be too loud. But level, we're happy to see all three on the Republican side, and just hoping to see what we can do on these races.
Great.
But here's my question for you, Lohinos. What accounts for the fact that you have basically the same voters, or a lot of the same voters, in Commissioner District 3 and Senate District 10, yet you have Bill Wysong, the Republican, winning pretty handily in Commissioner District 3, and you have Stan Vanderwerf losing by 3 points in Senate District 10. And again, those are kind of the same geographic area, same voters. What accounts for that difference, do you think? Did you get that,
I think with
Lohinos?
Mark Snyder. Yeah, what I think we saw is Mark Snyder, well known as a former mayor on the west side of Manitou Springs, and I think that name recognition has really helped the results.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. So, well, Lohinos, thanks for joining us right now to talk about this.
Hang on real quick.
Hold on.
Before you go, Lohinos, we got to know, are you running for governor in 2 years? Lohinos, are you there?
Yeah, I didn't catch that last part, though.
We got to know, are you running for governor in 2 years? All right, sorry about that.
No, but I am looking for,
get the scoop.
know
If it
any
was
good
there.
contacts.
So, Bree, do you remember what my bold prediction was for tonight?
I do.
What was it?
It was that it would pass. It would. Yes, you thought it would pass the recreational marijuana.
Well, I did, but that wasn't my bold prediction. My
Oh,
bold prediction was
200,000
that we,
viewers.
not 200,000. That'd be awesome. Just 2,000 viewers. 2,200 viewers
Wonderful.
right now. No pressure. You're talking to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, nobody thought this had really discussed this scenario. Any idea what happens if they both pass?
Yes. So if they both pass, the charter ban would take precedence because it
Okay.
is a charter amendment. Yeah.
Okay.
So I expected it to be close. I didn't know it would be, like a dead heat, pretty much. It was 53.29% passing ballot question 300, which is the pro campaign, and it was 53.28% for the ban. So it's very close right now.
What do you think accounts for that? Why do we have this circumstance where, seemingly the voters are saying directly opposite things at the same rate?
Absolutely. I think there was just a lot of confusion, around both competing ballot questions. I have not gotten a response back yet from the pro-campaign spokesperson, but a spokesperson for the opposition campaign ballot question 2D said that, yes, ballot language is what confused voters. In ballot question 300, it asks voters to limit the number of, the number of marijuana facilities that would be able to sell recreational marijuana to just those that have the existing medical marijuana licenses. So they feel that created a confusion among anti-marijuana voters who thought that question would be limiting.
I think it was written that way on purpose, confusingly so. Kind of the same way the county commissioner several years ago wrote that ballot initiative that says, shall we limit them to
Exactly.
3 terms when they were already limited to 2 terms before?
Exactly.
And I think that really sums it up, right? People really thought they were voting for that, for the limitation
Yes.
of the recreational sales of marijuana when they were in fact voting to allow the recreational sale of marijuana.
Yes.
So good thing, I guess, that the city council had the forethought to put the charter amendment on the ballot, and it sounds like that's going to take precedence. So still no legal weed in Colorado Springs. Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah.
That's what we're hearing.
Yeah. So far.
Palmer Lake can start spending their money, and Manitou doesn't have to panic.
That's right.
Well, thank you guys. If we have
Yeah.
any updates on that, any changes, I'll be back to talk with you guys about that.
How about
Thank you.
2C? Anything on that?
No, I mean, that was passing
Just
pretty.
73%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow, so
pretty
even
much
more
like
than
we
last
thought.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Overwhelmingly
everybody's-
approved. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, here we are, Kyle. We're getting through the evening. It's about 8:30, and obviously we still don't know who the president is, but I
Well-
think we're kind of starting to understand some things that are happening in the state of Colorado, though.
We are, but also I just got to note that both the New York Times and Washington Post forecasts right now see a Trump win. Based on what's happening in the battleground states and everything else, both of them right now are forecasting it that way. So very interesting. Again, still, I don't think any of the battlegrounds have been officially called, but
But
that's the way they're leaning.
a lot of stuff that is trending Trump's direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he still has. Looks like he's expanding his lead in Pennsylvania, about a 2.5 point lead now in Pennsylvania. So if that trend continues,
Yep.
It's going to be hard for her to defend with that blue wall.
Well, and then the big discussion will be, should she have picked Josh Shapiro as her vice presidential running mate as the governor of Pennsylvania to be more likely to carry that state? So everybody will be Monday morning quarterbacking that if that happens.
That's just going to be the way it goes. After all of this is over, and I actually think Joe Biden might be sitting at home right now, wondering, what if?
Yep.
Right? Maybe I was the guy. I just messed up in a debate, and if I'd been the nominee, I'd be winning this thing. So, and again, it looks like Trump's expanding his lead in Georgia right now. He's got over a 2.5 point lead there. That's a seat that's a state that he lost in 2020 against Joe Biden, but a state that he's currently winning right now by more than 100,000 votes.
Yeah. So big change there. I haven't seen anything new in El Paso County and nothing shockingly different in Colorado, or in the state of Colorado.
And my guess in El Paso County is we've seen all of the early votes that were cast and counted, but we're still going to be waiting for day of votes and votes that are going to be coming in as the night goes on, as they continue to count. So there may be a few races that we don't know the results to tonight. In Colorado and El Paso County, I'm guessing Stan Vanderwerf isn't ready to concede in that Senate District 10 race. But that's one that I've sort of felt all along as I've seen the data, as I've talked to people, as I've got the anecdotal evidence. That's one, I've been saying on our podcast for, probably a month now that I thought Mark Snyder was going to win and was probably going to win by about 3 points.
Yeah.
And that's kind of right where we are tonight. So I think it's interesting, though, that Bill Wysong in the commissioner district race there is up by 10 points, and it's kind of the same voters.
Yeah.
A lot of the same voters there. So, what's that come down to? Maybe quality of the candidates. As Lohino's told us, Mark Snyder's a little bit more well-known.
He is. He's got a ton of name recognition.
And it's the kind of get out the vote efforts there. So Fascinating to see what we're seeing tonight. No real surprises from a Colorado state perspective, but as we continue to watch what's happening in America, we are seeing some of those states starting to break Trump's way.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions from viewers. The first question is, what happens if Trump wins? Does Congress allow Trump to become president? That seems like an odd question, because I think if he wins, yes.
Yeah, and I think maybe this question is obviously seated in what was happening 4 years ago with Congress trying to change the outcome of the election for Joe Biden. I think that's kind of one of the issues there. I think the other issue is, what happens with this conviction?
Yeah.
With these felony convictions, Trump he wins the election, and then he's got a sentencing coming up later in the month for these felony convictions. What happens there? I know everybody seems to think that Trump is going to do nothing more than pardon himself.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to happen. I don't know that we've determined that a president can actually pardon himself, but I think, if that is the case, and if Trump does decide to pardon himself, at what point, at what juncture does that happen? Does it happen before the sentencing, or does it happen after the sentencing? Imagine the stones it would take, Kyle, to sentence a president-elect to prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that is uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Absolute uncharted territory.
Next question, real quick. Somebody asked, will Arizona need to do a recount with Trump only up by 2,300 votes? Usually the trigger is if it's less than half of 1% difference between the candidates, then that triggers an automatic recount. I don't know if that 2,300 is inside that range or outside that range right now, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure it's a 0.5% triggers an automatic recount. I think that's one of those circumstances where a candidate can ask for a recount. So it's conceivably possible that that a recount could happen in one of those states, but we just don't know.
Yeah. I'm looking at a map that's showing Trump ahead in Arizona, and you're looking at a map that shows Harris ahead in Arizona.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Senate map right now just to see what's happening with.
All right, I was like, what are we watching?
The Senate, and again, I think it's kind of interesting. You got Trump up in Arizona, but you also have Ruben Gallegos up over Kerry Lake by a pretty wide margin in Arizona for that Senate seat. So. Yeah. No changes there. We're not going to see any change there. The Montana seat, that looks like that one's going to flip Republican. Now, granted, we only have a very few number of votes that have been reported in that state, only 6% reporting. But of that 6%, that's trending the way we've always thought it was going to coming into election night. The Republican there's Tim Sheehy is beating the incumbent Senator John Tester in that race. That's one I think we're going to see flip as well. So you have that Montana Senate seat flipping. They've already called the West Virginia Senate seat for the Republican. That makes it 51-49 Republicans in the Senate, provided Republicans win in all the other places that they're supposed to win. And we may see other seats flip as well. Bernie Moreno is up by just a little bit over 5 points over Sherrod Brown in Ohio. And so it looks like that's going to be a seat that flips and becomes a Republican. That's got about 86% of the vote in right now. And so I think as we're looking at this map, overall, good night for Republicans, Kyle.
Yeah. Did you, and I apologize, as far as the U.S. House, is that going to stay Republican or will that flip to the Dems.
So let's take a quick look at the House races right now that are going on and see what we can tell from the what's being reported as of right now. If you had asked me 6 or 8 months ago what's going to happen in the U.S. Congress in the House, no doubt, absolutely, Democrats are going to take control. It's just a matter of by how much. But I think this is kind of shaping up the same way it was just a couple of years ago when Republicans took control. It was no doubt, absolutely, Republicans are going to take control, but those margins just kept shrinking as time went on, and it only ended up that Republicans took the Congress by just a few seats, 5, 6 seats. And I think whatever happens tonight, that's right where we're going to be. It's just going to come down to a couple of seats. And I think the Democrats believe their best pickup opportunities and their best chance at success is swinging a couple of those seats in New York that had been taken by Republicans in the last election and switching those back to Democratic seats.
Yeah.
So, but I can tell you Lawler is a great candidate. He's represented his district in New York very well. That's one of the pickup opportunities for the Democrats. He's kind of stood up to Trump in that district, and I think that's created some success. So if he's able to hang on, it's going to be harder and harder for the Democrats to be able to pick up those seats they need to take the House back.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think that would have a pretty significant impact on, counting electors and all of that stuff when it comes to certifying the election for the next president.
Exactly.
Kyle, we're up to 2,400 viewers. What an incredible night. Thank you guys all so much. We apologize for any technical issues we've had early on in the night. I think we've kind of got those resolved for now. But appreciate you tuning in tonight. If you want to have more of this great content, go to our YouTube page and please follow us. That's how we're able to continue to bring this content to you. The We Have Issues podcast page on YouTube. Please go follow us, and we'll continue to bring some of this great analysis and content that we bring you every night, or once a week, I should say.
Once a week.
And on election nights.
Yep. Few more results. Statewide votes just trickling in.
Painful, isn't it?
Nothing even close enough to changing any of the races that we've seen so far. And again, El Paso County, we got the one big drop, but almost an hour ago, and haven't seen anything since then. So,
boy, if ever there was a reason not to hand count ballots, it's when you're painfully waiting on results to come in, right?
Exactly.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Would you like to talk about our sponsors, Kyle?
Yeah, thanks again.
This is how we're going to get paid in the future, is by talking about sponsors and getting that getting that content out there.
Yes. So thanks again to our sponsors, Furry Friends Incorporated, Stubby's Grooming Salon, and Poor Richards. Again, if you get a chance, please frequent their businesses or check them out. Well worth it. As Mark said, his
my dog Benny.
His dog Benny is a good-looking dog, and I have a feeling that it's because of the grooming that he gets, and not necessarily because of the care he gets at home. So, and also Poor Richards. Again, thanks for feeding us tonight and supporting this effort. And again, if you get a chance. Probably my favorite pizza here in town. So
it's New York style.
It's perfect.
Maybe that's what we should be voting on tonight. New York versus Chicago. Right?
Yeah, because you're
it'd be 51-49.
Yeah.
We'd still be counting votes into tomorrow. What pizza? If you had to say, Kyle, who's the New York slice? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? And who's the Chicago deep dish? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
Kamala's deep dish.
Oh, our producer
Yeah.
Josh is saying Kamala's deep dish. And why is that?
Trump's
I
from New
believe
York. Trump's from New York.
So you got to give him the New York slice?
You got to give him the New York slice, but that isn't how I would compare it. I like New York style better, but that doesn't necessarily mean
Wait,
I like
if-
Trump better.
Hang on, but if Kamala's from the
California.
West Coast and she's from San Francisco, does that mean she's got seafood on pizza? Because I got to tell you, that's not okay.
True,
That is just plain not okay.
or pineapple for that matter.
Yep, nope, that's also wrong.
So,
Can't have it. Right, Kyle? I mean, that's just not something that we can do.
true. Very true.
So what do we have? What do we have from an update perspective? It seems to me we haven't learned a whole lot. We had that kind of first dump of initial ballots in the state of Colorado, and we really haven't had any updates in the last, hour or so?
No.
Votes just maybe starting to trickle in a little bit. We
Yeah.
haven't seen any real changes in any of the ballot initiatives. We haven't seen much in the way of changes in the contested races in the state. We have those 3 congressional races. Do we have any updates there?
Nothing significant. It really is same leads. I think we're seeing, on the congressional races, I think the 2 close ones were CD3, and we're still seeing Jeff Hurd up by about 7,500 votes. 49.75 to 47 so a little over 2% lead for him. And then down in Congressional District 8, Yadira Caraveo is still holding on to a slim lead of about 4,000 votes, or just a little over 1.5% in there. So again, more votes coming in, but nothing in terms of a lead has changed for anybody.
Yeah. So as we've looked at those races, analyzed those, exactly where we thought they would be. Hurd with a slight lead, Boebert with a decent lead, nothing that's really had that race in doubt. Caraveo, we always knew was going to be a really close race, but something we had predicted she would win. So, the stuff that we're hearing, the stuff that we're seeing has been pretty spot on.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think it's interesting. I thought this might be the year that the Trump bias would be accounted for in the polling data, but it just seems like they still haven't quite got that right. I think it's a little bit closer
Yeah.
than it's been in the past, but still hasn't accounted for that full Trump bias. And what do I mean by the Trump bias? I think it's one of these issues where people are voting for the guy, but they're ashamed to say that they're voting for the guy. And so when they get called by the pollster, they lie and they don't talk about it. Or, I think in some circumstances, the kind of voters that Trump attracts are the kind of voters that don't think anybody needs to know what their vote is. And so they're not sharing anyway.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. They still, for 3 cycles in a row now, there's been no real ability to allow for that that Trump factor in the polling. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fascinating that, we've just been in this circumstance time and time again, and it just hasn't been, haven't been able to figure out that data. But, maybe we still have a long ways to go tonight. Maybe it's going to tighten up even more, but I think it's interesting. We have some of these, major publications that, presumably know quite a bit about politics that say, listen, we think this is going to be Trump.
Yeah.
And he's going to win it tonight. So I think then what it's going to come down to is what ends up happening to the U.S. House, and by how many do the Republicans take the U.S. Senate?
Yeah. Yep. So a little bit of mystery left, but not much of it in Colorado.
Yeah. You know, we should reach out to our good buddy Joe again, but he may just simply be crying in his beer at this point. So let's see if we can get him back on the line and see what he has to say in terms of how the night's shaping up.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting, Kyle. No changes, literally no changes, and is in what we thought was going to happen in the state of Colorado. Means I think we have a pretty good pulse on the political climate in the state. You know, we get out there, talk to a lot of people, and things are happening the way we expected they were.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, I think some of these ballot initiatives have been just a little bit different. Initially, I thought 131 was going to pass.
So did I.
You know, the ranked choice voting, but it sounds like that thing is losing handily. And have we seen any updates there?
Hold on, let me pull it up right here. It looks like still 55% no, 45% yes, roughly. So again, a 10-point margin. Very surprising to me, because I think at one point it was definitely polling in the positive direction. And something
And I'm sorry,
something happened over the last few weeks.
I was texting with Liberal Joe. What were you saying there? I missed it.
Just that it's a 10-point spread still on 131.
You know what
the no vote.
You know what I think that one came down to? I think that's a circumstance where neither party wanted to have that happen. The far right and the far left kind of married up and joined up in opposition to that ballot initiative, and I think that's the big reason this thing isn't passing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And there just weren't enough unaffiliated voters out there to carry the day.
Yeah, and I think the parties got organized late, and that's why I think it was just kind of what felt like a late shift.
You know, and I can't help but think maybe the jungle primary would have passed, but not the ranked choice portion of it. So if we just had the primary opened up to everybody, put the top 4 on the ballot, and then the top vote getter out of those 4 wins without having the ranked choice part of it, maybe it actually passes and carries the day. But I think the ranked choice portion of that initiative is what ultimately led to its failure.
Yep.
I mean, just seems to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not sure, but as I've kind of thought about that and thought about why people weren't voting for it and kind of what their argument was against it, it was how you got to rank choice the votes. And I think that was the problem. So, you know, it's kind of interesting as things are shaping up tonight. See any circumstances where, you know, we have a lot of legal challenges to what happens in the presidential election or somewhere else?
I don't know. If Trump wins this, I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of legal challenges.
Well, let's bring Joe back in. You know, he always has great astute analysis. Let's hear from him and see what he has to say.
Guys,
Are
I'm
you trying
toasting.
to beer yet?
No, I'm toasting to President-elect Kamala Harris because I've done the math. She's going to win this on Thursday, and I'm glad to explain why.
Let's
Please
hear
do.
it.
So here we go.
Let's hear it.
She runs the board in the West: California, Oregon, Washington State, and Hawaii. Then once they count Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine, New Jersey, boom, that gets us another 120 electoral college votes. She wins Minnesota, ekes out Wisconsin and Michigan, takes over New Mexico, Nevada, and then ekes out Arizona. It all comes down to Pennsylvania. Just talked to one of my friends in Pennsylvania who's been working on the Kamala campaign. The last votes, of course, are Philly and Pittsburgh, and some of the surrounding suburbs like Bucks County. That'll finally be counted on Thursday because Pennsylvania thinks they're special and doesn't count votes that are early votes until election night. They need to change that arcane law. She wins with 276 or 282 electoral college votes. You heard it here. Boom.
I got to tell you, if that happens, if that scenario plays out, and you thought January 6th was an
Why?
issue,
Counting votes.
Mackerel.
You know, hey guys, why should votes that get counted at the end of the day not count as much as early? I mean, it's like, it's math, people. It's math.
And I don't disagree with you that the votes should be counted, but that is a very specific scenario, I think, that's going to take for her to be able to run the board. And I just think
it's Maine, New Hampshire. She's up in all those. New Jersey.
Itself to
Oh,
having these conspiracy theorists, really talk about the election being stolen. And I think President Trump is better at whipping up those conspiracy theories.
I know, it's so sad.
Than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And so I don't disagree with you. All I'm saying is I think if that happens, it's a very specific scenario that's got to happen. And I think if it does happen, I think the people are going to come out of the woodwork.
But it's like celebrating the Super Bowl at halftime when Beyonce's given the halftime singing performance. You play 4 quarters in a football game. We all know, for example, Mahomes is going to beat my Lions in the Super Bowl. You got to play all 4 quarters. The fact that New Jersey, Maine, and New Hampshire haven't been called is ridiculous. Once those estimated 35 electoral college votes go into Kamala's category, it's gonna be great. I mean, here's the thing: the Midwest or the Western states in the South, they're all small red states. Of course, you're gonna. It's like Utah, ooh, Alabama, ooh. Of course, we know they're gonna go towards Trump. You know, it's like Massachusetts, yes. So as the West finally closes their polls, the blue wall in the West, guys, I'm telling you, it comes down to Pennsylvania. She wins Pennsylvania by 55,000 votes. This is over. It's over.
So what I'm hearing you saying is Kamala Harris is Tom Brady and Donald Trump is Matt Ryan. Is that what I'm hearing?
You're close. I think she's more Mahomes, but yeah.
Well, I was talking about that Super Bowl that was over at halftime a few years back.
Oh, great point. 28-3.
The New England Patriots come storming back.
28-3.
You know, they beat
I mean, to me, I'm going to get partisan here for a second. I think of all of Trump's sins, with a capital S, it's how he's poisoned the American public on our democracy with a small d, our republic, and challenge our institutions because he's a loser. It's just, it's so disheartening that he can't accept losing, so he has to blame the referees. I mean, how many times does a parent teach their kid, referee calls go your way? Sometimes they don't. You don't blame the referee in the system. You man up. It's really pathetic.
Well, what do you think about some of these U.S. Senate races? Is that shaping up the way you thought it was going to?
For the most part, yes, except for Allred got his ass kicked, obviously, in Texas. And then Brown, I thought that'd be a tighter race. And then Osborne's going to take down a 2-term incumbent in Fisher in Nebraska. I think he wins that pretty handily. So it'll be 51-49, even though Osborne will caucus by himself.
You think it's going to be 51-49? I mean, I think I've got this more 52-48, 53-47.
Yeah, we lose West Virginia and Montana. Now Ohio, pick up Nebraska, and that puts us at 49 if you count Osborne. But either way, I think John Thune becomes the majority leader. And I think eventually by Thursday we'll know in the House.
And hey, you want to know who the biggest winners are of the night? I'm here to
Who's
tell
that?
you. It's the We Have Issues podcast. You realize you're talking to almost 3,000 people.
Oh, jeez. Mark, you're such a stud. You know what? You're a man amongst men, sir. A man amongst men.
We are couldn't be more pleased.
So, Joe, while you guys were chatting, I was doing some math on Pennsylvania.
Yep.
So there's about 1.7, little under 1.7 million votes left in that state.
Yep.
She has to win 55% of those to come back and win the state.
Yeah, and at that point in the night in 2020, Biden needed about 54%. Again, guys, it's Pittsburgh and Philly. Those are my people. And it's going to be Thursday because Pennsylvania thinks they're special. It doesn't count votes until 7 p.m. on election night. Again, they got to change that arcane law. They're not special. I'm from Michigan. We always beat them in football. They need to change their laws. And Biden won by about 150,000. She'll win by 55,000. And Casey will pull it out probably by about 25,000. I'm more confident in Pennsylvania. It's Arizona that's worrisome to me.
Huh.
Yeah.
How about from a state perspective, things shaping up the way you thought they were in these 3 competitive congressional districts?
Yeah.
Did you see the state house, state senate?
Yeah, Boebert, is going to win by 8 or 9 points. I've already heard Calvert is going to start running tomorrow for 2026. I do think Yadira squeaks it out by about 3,000 votes. I think she won by 1,600 against our friend Barb in 2022. And then, Adam Frisch, he was up 2 points about 3 weeks ago, got down about 2 points, and I think he might lose by about a point. So that's going to be sad for our side. But, it's going to turn out to be, 4 and 4 of the 8 congressional districts in Colorado.
I thought what was interesting in that Frisch Hurd race, I got a call from Scott Tipton earlier today, who had been the congressman in that district for, about 10 years. And he said, it's crazy the amount of money that's coming into these congressional races. He said back in my day, and this is only 6 or 8 years ago, right? Back in his day, $2 million is the kind of hard money raising that you'd have to do in order to carry the day. And man, in this race, Adam Frisch raised over $15 million.
18 million. 18. Yeah.
Is that the trend we're going to see moving forward, where these congressional races are going to be big money the way we're currently seeing them?
With inflammatory candidates like Lauren Boebert, yes. Like, I've got a friend of mine, all he does is raise money for Democratic congressional candidates. And his hope is if his candidate is running against somebody like a Marjorie Greene in Georgia or Boebert in Colorado, all he does is tap into his, I think he has a 1.8 million donor database where they give about $20-25 a person. And he taps into that and say, hey, my candidate's running against Boebert. And in a month, he can raise $1 million. The system's changed. You don't do call time. When I ran for Congress in 2012 against Mike Kaufman in the 6th congressional district, I narrowly lost by 2 percentage points, 48% to 46%. I literally averaged 8 hours a day in call time. And I raised close to $2 million hard. They dumped in millions in the soft side, for television ads. It's hard to know the exact number. But today, you don't do that. It's all online and social media. You're raising $1 million a month. I mean, before you know it, in a 24-month cycle, even if it's half of that, you're raising plenty for everything. Social media, campaign staff, TV, radio, paid doors, paid phones. Yeah, it's just a different game now. Everything's nationalized. The Tip O'Neill comment about localization is dead.
I'm sorry, say that again.
For the most part, the old Tip O'Neill congressional comment that politics is local, it's dead. And obviously, when you have a Colorado Springs and a Denver district, everything's local because it's a 70-30 split or a 60-40 split. But politics are so nationalized now.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy the kind of dollars that are going into these races. And I think that's one of the areas, it seems to me, that the Democrats have figured out a whole lot better than Republicans. They're able to tap into those that volume of small donors nationally so much better than Republicans are. It seems to me the Republicans still sort of count on those big donors trying to get the big dollars from a smaller number of people, where your Dea Carveo says, for me, it's all about small donors contributing, and the more of them I can get nationally, the better off I'm going to be.
Mark, it's a great point, very astute. Democrats have their Democracy Alliance. We've got our 100 big billionaires and millionaire donors that have been around for 20 years. But the Republicans have so many more big billionaire and millionaire donors that you just never hear about, but will easily put in funds. I mean, Elon Musk's money, yeah, that gets the headlines, but there's so many more folks Republicans have on their side, where they'll donate $20-30 million in a couple key Senate races, like in Montana or Ohio, and yeah, it flips the scale. Now, in the end, it all evens out. We'll spend about $1.5 billion on the presidential, Senate, and House races, and so will you. So, call it $3 billion, $4 billion. It evens out. But in the end, yeah, you've had better donors on the soft side.
Yeah. And I think that's right. Maybe Republicans do a little bit better from the soft side perspective, and certainly Democrats are able to raise those smaller dollar amounts from a much larger group of people. But I think where that becomes important is, as you know, Joe, running a political race, you got to be able to show those benchmarks and those fundraising benchmarks in order to get those big third-party dollars spent in your race.
Yeah, no, you have to go through all the fundamentals: doors knocked, volunteers recruited, endorsements received, and most importantly, dollars raised. Yeah, the hard side will always be important for that matter, just to show viability. Are people buying what you're selling? And then they'll poll and see if you're truly viable or not. And then the big money comes in. And by the way, one surprise is the Snyder race. I thought he'd win by 5 to 10 points, but I'm hearing that's now within the margin of error. So I don't know if you have any scoop on that, but that's tightened up.
Yeah, so I've always thought that race was going to be a 3-point race. I knew it was going to be pretty close. And currently Snyder's up by 3 points. Now, that was after the initial dump of votes from the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, and certainly votes have been really slow to come out of El Paso County tonight. In fact, we've seen one update. That was at about 8:15. We haven't seen an update since then. And in that circumstance, Snyder was up by 3 points. So, it depends on how many more votes are out there. And what Stan Vanderwerf is going to be able to do. Can he make up those? Or it might be a circumstance where Snyder grows that lead. Who knows?
Yeah, I do think he'll pull out a victory. It's just closer than I thought.
Yeah, and I think, it depends on how many votes are out there day of, right? I mean, that's really what it kind of comes down to. I think that would tend to support the race maybe tightening up a little bit, because the conventional wisdom is that there are more Republicans that vote day of than Democrats. And so we might, as they kind of count those day of votes, maybe the race tightens up a little bit. But Mark's got a 3-point lead. I don't think anybody's going to be declaring victory or conceding in that race anytime soon. And they're going to certainly wait until the next tranche of votes drops. But it's been a little bit frustrating waiting on those votes to come out of El Paso County tonight.
We may not know that until after Pennsylvania does the presidential.
Yeah, it could be Thursday.
Yeah, maybe El Paso County is helping count Bucks County votes right now in Pennsylvania. That's probably what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So hey, Mark, back to Colorado. Statewide as well as Denver, folks are willing to tax guns for mental health. That was an issue very important to House Majority Leader Monica Duran. She's had a well-publicized effort to make sure there's more mental health services. Obviously, the state is very pro-choice. I know people have strong feelings on both sides of that issue.
Back to the gun issue real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, Joe, but back to the gun issue real quick. Paying 11.5% sales tax now on a gun. I'm going to be buying all mine on the black market from here on out. So, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I think in Denver, you're still seeing a lot of skepticism about raising taxes, especially in this economic climate. And I think with 131, again, voters are skeptical about changing the political system if they think it's going to give a perceived advantage to someone or some party. And they will sometimes stick with the status quo, which I think you're seeing tonight. The animal initiatives are fascinating, and folks are supporting law enforcement. which will be some serious budget cuts in other areas like social services, roads, and senior services. So kind of a fascinating across the board, hard to predict list of ballot initiatives and referendums.
Yeah, and I think that animal one is one of the more fascinating ones of the evening. If you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago or a month ago if that was going to pass, I'd be like, that thing was going to pass by a wide margin. And so that's kind of interesting to see where that one's headed.
Yeah.
And I kind of got Rachel Beck on earlier, and she was talking about some previous ballot initiatives and some polling that was done on, did Colorado voters have any buyer's remorse on some ballot initiatives that passed in recent history? And the number one ballot initiative that voters had in terms of buyer's remorse in the state of Colorado was reintroduction of wolves. And you kind of wonder if that maybe had an impact on people not being asked to vote for this one.
Yeah, very astute comment. As much as people like the right to vote on initiatives, referendums, constitutional amendments, in the end, they realize, hey, there's some issues that need some more dialogue, need some more discussion. And the wolf introduction amendment was a perfect example. It happened right before COVID. They were the last initiative to secure their signatures before the world shut down because they started so early and had a very mobilized, energized base of volunteers. But in the end, that's why voters still like representative democracy, elect people who actually study issues for months on end and stakehold with opposing groups to figure out what's the best solution. So spot on. And Mark, you've always said people don't like a 41-page thick state constitution. They want a thinner U.S. Constitution as an analogy. And I think that's a great message that the voters communicated this evening or today.
Yeah.
Well, and it gives you faith in humanity, right? That, voters recognize and understand what's important. And it's good to see a little bit of prudence being exercised when it comes to these ballot initiatives. I like seeing that.
And Mark, take it serious for a second here. Voters always get it right. And they may not have a PhD in public policy and talk 18 bullet points deep on tax policy with Vietnam or water rights. I've known water lawyers who spend 40 years on one case. It's amazing. Water law so arcane. But in the end, they get it right in terms of their sense of a person or an issue. I may not always agree. You may not always agree. But I have an inherent belief in American people. And I've always believed it's our job, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent, you better sell the message right and convince 51% or 50% plus one of the voters to your position. If not, that's on us, not them.
Amen. I don't think you could have said it any better than you just said it there. And Joe, we always appreciate the incredibly astute analysis that you bring to this podcast on these election nights. I hope to see you continue to bringing this kind of analysis every election night. We love having you on, one of our favorite guests that way, and I hope you continue to come back. But before you go tonight,
please.
One last question for you, and kind of funny, a little bit serious at the same time.
Yeah.
Let's say Trump wins this thing tonight. Just hypothetically speaking, he ends up winning this thing. What happens with his criminal cases moving forward?
Well, the first thing is a lot of my friends would get drunk for a week. Half would move to France. But on a serious note, I think most of those cases get thrown out based on the recent U.S. Supreme Court decision. And I think more people, especially on my side of the aisle, lose faith in the United States Supreme Court and the judicial system. But big.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in particular, the thing that I have the question about is the case where he's already been convicted. The 39 felony convictions are all related to the same thing. He's got a sentencing coming up into November, right? So
November 26th. Yeah.
I guess he actually wouldn't be able to pardon himself until after he becomes president. So theoretically, that would be after sentencing. But do you think there's a court in the land? You know, this judge is sitting at home tonight saying,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, if this guy wins, what do I do?" There's no
Yeah.
back sentencing to prison, right?
Well, he's fearful for his life. I mean, for God's sake, the judge in Mesa County got death threats over the Tina Peters 9-year sentence. Yeah, I mean, this is where, they don't speak often, but you've all heard U.S. Supreme Court justices during the summer, during the off session, speak, to their alumni, their law school, about just general legal issues. And they'll talk. I think it was Chief Justice Roberts that gave a speech a couple years ago. He talked about the court can never get too far in advance of the American public on major decisions. Yes, there's exceptions to that rule, but he's always kind of taken a pulse about where the public is. I think that's one of the reasons he was the fifth vote on preserving Obamacare about 10 years ago. That infuriated my friends on the right or the Republican Party. But I think he's got a sense. And of course, politics comes into play. To think it doesn't is just not realistic. So yeah, that judge is considering things.
If this judge sentences him to some sort of incarceration, do you think that has a negative impact on democracy in the United States?
No, I don't. And Mark, you and I have had these conversations offline where it's a really tricky question, which is when does a crime become enough of a crime where a district attorney or an attorney general has to prosecute, where he or she is not perceived as being partisan? I mean, Trump is kind of what I would say poisoned the water so much, he'll say any lawsuit against him or court case is partisan. But what does he have to do in order to bring something to bear? Now, okay, here's an example, and I'm going to put a lot of disclaimers. We'll know in 20 years on a Dateline episode, truly, with this next example. But one of the theories my party talks about is all of the classified documents that ended up next to Trump's toilet in Florida. It was dozens of boxes. The theory goes one of those classified boxes contained documents about 8 or 9 families that were trying to overthrow the Saudi family. I think it's Mohammed Ajikazan. And sure enough, about 8 or 9 of those families had assassinations. And then right after that, who got $2 billion of investment? Trump's son-in-law, Jared. So that's a fascinating theory. And again, I want to say it's only a theory, but do you think that's going to come to light? Whoever be prosecuted? Again, we'll know in 20 years when somebody's on their deathbed, but that's some serious stuff to ponder.
Yeah, there is a lot to consider there, that's for sure.
But tonight, I'm going to stay up all night and hopefully toast I'm drinking rum, not whiskey tonight. It's my good luck charm to toast Kamala Harris, Madam-elect President. But I don't think we'll know until Thursday.
Well, my friend, always appreciate the incredibly astute analysis. Love you like a brother. Appreciate you being willing to come on and talk to us. Even if you're wrong on occasion, that's okay. We love having you, my friend. And God bless and take care of the rest of the night.
Actually, Mark, on a personal note, you're my favorite Republican. We're going to get through this no matter what happens, and I appreciate your friendship.
Thanks for being on, Joe.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, apparently we've got some local races to call. What are we hearing, Josh?
Well, we've got another 0.5% turned in.
In El Paso County?
It went from 47 point something to 48.1%.
Jeez.
And so Snyder still has a 1,400 vote lead in D12, 1,403.
1,403 in what we've seen.
Yeah, but roughly that's 3%, a 3% lead based on what's in.
Well, boy, it doesn't sound like there have been many votes at all, extra votes counted in these local races.
In the last hour and a half.
In the last hour and a half. But it looks like
the state stuff.
Shayna Ball has expanded her lead against Glant Havener by, went from 4 votes to now 9 votes in that Palmer Lake mayoral race. So that's going to be interesting to see as that continues to happen here. But, you know, I think so far the biggest surprise of the night is that, you know, Trump's got the lead that he has.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, depending on, you know, Joe seems to have been looking at, you know, Pennsylvania and what's left to count and if that's accurate and all of that. But
you know,
right now, Trump's leading in the blue wall.
I think Joe may have been talking a little bit less and the rum may have been talking just a little bit more, and a little bit of hopeful thinking. So North Carolina just got called for Trump. So that goes in the win column. And again, I think, you know, Republicans could pick up as many as 53 seats in the United States Senate. Yeah. It's going to be a good night across the board for Republicans in every single state except for Colorado, where we continue to buck that tradition when Republicans have great nights. That's why we have issues. That's absolutely right. We have issues because Republicans can't figure it out. Yeah. So, it's, by the way, if you want to get a really pretty sweet We Have Issues t-shirt, reach out to Josh. He'll make one for you. Reach out to us on our website, on our Facebook page, and we'll try to hook you up with some of our very sweet swag. That's for sure. So, Kyle, are we going to know much more before the evening's over?
I can't imagine that we would. I just, based on how slow stuff's coming in locally, yeah, we could stay up for another couple hours and get a little bit more on the presidential stuff, but I just don't know that.
I'll tell you what.
We're going to know a whole hell of a lot.
I'll go home and I'm going to get in my PJs, and then if we have some changes to update, you just give me a call, and then I'll hop on the podcast like we normally do it from my basement in my office.
Okay.
What do you think of that? But I think that's going to require you to stay up all night long, check in the returns as they're coming in. We literally just hit 3,000 viewers, Kyle.
Nice.
This is amazing. Now, if all 3,000 of you would just go out and
subscribe
on YouTube. Thank you. Go ahead. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Look at us wherever you look at podcasts, but like us, follow us, do the things that you have to do to help us continue bringing you this great content.
Absolutely.
And really cool logos like on my shirt.
Yeah, very cool. So I guess one more time, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Furry Friends Incorporated, Stubby's Grooming Salon, and Poor Richards for their support tonight. Again, very much appreciated. If you get a chance to check them out and frequent their locations, that would be great. Again, Mark didn't have any pictures of his dog, but from what we understand, he's an attractive animal based on his grooming.
He's a good-looking one, and we do have pictures. You want to see pictures? I'm that guy.
I don't know if we're there yet.
I'm that guy.
To start showing dog pictures on the show, but
I'm completely again, that guy. I'm telling
you. Really appreciate the support of our sponsors. So
yeah, and a huge thank you to the Gazette for having us here this evening. Can't tell you how much we appreciate that, and being able to have some synergies with them and do this coverage together, partnering with the Gazette. That's been huge for us this evening. And boy, what a, maybe we're not going to know the outcome of the election, but great, huge, successful night for us on the podcast. Exactly. And by the way, here's Benny. Here, pass that. Maybe we can put that up on the screen. He's wearing his, he's actually wearing his Vote for Benny. Look at that. Look at nice. That beautiful dog.
Nice.
He's wearing his Vote for Benny bandana. How about that? I think we're having a hard time getting
him in focus.
But as you can see, absolutely beautiful dog.
Very good looking dog. So, well,
I think we're about as far as we can go tonight, Kyle.
Yeah, with the information we have, but maybe we will jump on tomorrow and maybe do an update based on what we see overnight. But really want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Really appreciate the support. That's been amazing. And we will hopefully be back soon with some additional information in the next day or two.
Yeah, it's been a great night. Thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate it. And, probably going to go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow and there might be some changing.
Who knows?
Who knows?